Welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How's everybody doing? Let's party! Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this, even though you missed the live party. Guys, that is the best part. So make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Trying something a little bit different right now, doing 6 p.m. We usually go live at 8 p.m., but all this week, we are going to be going live at 6 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you are here and hit that subscribe button. So whenever I go live, you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. Let's also say thank you to my6shirt.com. Whatever your persuasion, they've got something for you. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at my6shirt.com. All right. Welcome to the party. We got Atari Legend first in the building. Welcome. So, yes, I wanted to try doing a little bit earlier. I know that 8 p.m. Eastern is a time that may not always be easy for everybody. So for this week, we're trying 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to see what's going on with that. And we'll take it from there. Shout out to Unwanted Foe. Welcome to the party. So, for those of you who are not too familiar, the big purpose, the main purpose of this channel is to get people to be better at having discussions with each other. And a lot of times that is going to be about a civil discussion, but not always. And you have to be prepared that if somebody comes at you with some hot energy, that you know how to respond in kind and not get in your feelings and make it look like the other person has won or beat you just because they are using better rhetorical practices. So there is a channel, Charisma on Command, that's actually really good. They do short videos that will take maybe a habit that a celebrity has or something that many celebrities do and kind of point them out in interviews and stuff. Really, really good. The guy Charlie also has the Dropping In podcast. And so that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. Some of you will recognize the guest as Destiny, aka Stephen Pennell, but don't worry. It is not stuff that we have seen a million times before. It is the good stuff. As always, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know. Shout out to Opus. Welcome to the
First question. I've seen a ton of your debates lately. I thought you handled yourself quite well, for instance, the Milo debate, where he started off with...
Oh my goodness, right out the gate, giving Morty a treat. Look, come on over here. That is right. Every single super chat, every single donation comes with a treat for Morty. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you so much. Unwanted Foe.
It was wild. I felt triggered on your behalf when he just came at your wife extremely hard out of the gate. Obviously a calculated thing. I know what I saw. Have you seen the videos that I've made in the past at all? The Charisma on Command videos?
I watched a couple when I was going to your first podcast a long time ago, but
yeah, you guys should definitely check that channel out. Again, this is from his Dropping In podcast. The full podcast was about 2.5 hours. That's linked in the description below, but this is what Destiny took out. And shout out to whoever is behind the editing at Destiny, because I went back to watch the full podcast to see, like, okay, how much am I missing? Because this is only about 40 minutes. And that editor is on point. Just picked out every piece that we need, put it right in a succinct little video for us, and it is seamless. So shout out.
Yeah. So the general idea is, I look in a very analytical way at social situations and see if I can figure out the rules that underlie them. It's a bit of an Aspergery approach to it, but it was what I had to do when I was in high school, trying to piece together what the hell I was not understanding.
And that's exactly it. That when you don't have a religious underpinning, then you have to individually, one by one, piece together what your understanding of the world is. And even if you are religious, then the ability to do so is still a very important skill.
About how to get girls to like me. And I had started to do that watching you. I'm curious if you're aware of the approaches that you take into these debates, how you handle insults and that sort of thing.
Yeah, super analytical and very deliberate. There's a huge every time a topic like this comes, like 15 things pop in my mind.
Yeah, so let's like break it out. So first off, I think there's a difference between debates to persuade an audience and debates to change someone's mind. So
Absolutely.
That's a huge, and that's exactly what I was just talking about when we're talking about good faith versus bad faith. He just, with the two different types of debates, nail on the head, that you're either going into a debate to try to learn about what the other person has to think and see if you can move them and change their mind. You may not, pull them all the way over to your side, but, if you can get them to move a little bit, that would be the point of the first type of debate. The second type of the debate is the one that, typically is a little bit more fun to watch, where two people are not at all, ever going to, change each other's minds. But it's really about those who are watching, the people in the audience who haven't made their minds up yet. So again, when you're discussing things with somebody, even if they turn, bad faith, and you're like, hey man, we were having a good discussion. Why you instead of getting all up in your feels, realize that if there's an audience, now you're just playing to the audience.
Well, yeah.
I imagine when you walk into that with Milo, you're like, I'm not trying to change Milo's mind.
Exactly.
Typically, usually, like something I've been really big on lately is matching energy. So I try to be very reactive to the person that I'm dealing with.
So that might even sound bad, being reactive, but it's actually ideal, because you want to let the other person set the tone. And you do that knowing that no matter what tone they set, that you'll be able to handle it. It's when you have to have the conversation on these grounds, otherwise you're going to lose, that you get insecure about it. So if you let them play, like, okay, what kind of game are we playing? All right, I'll take it. You want to take it there? We can play it. If you want to play nice, we can play nice. But either way, you're ready for it. Unwanted foes. So the types where they can't even agree to disagree, because that would require agreeing on something. Exactly.
Yeah, I try to be very reactive, and that's probably true in social situations too. I'll come in, I've got like a certain style that I prefer, but like I'll listen to you and I'll go with your energy, and then I'll try to like follow and maybe like lead by my following, even depending on how that person wants to interact. So if you watch that Milo debate, I opened up very respectful, very kind, very courteous, despite the fact that he was so busy doing blow in the bathroom and being a diva. He was like an hour and a half late for a bunch of like college kids. So he like charged like thousands of dollars to come out and do this debate for.
I didn't know that they charged money for that. We actually covered, that was the debate that we covered, where he was just, it wasn't even a win for Destiny, because Milo was just so out of it. But he said something very important that kind of underlines what I was just saying, that he will lead by following, and understand that is in and of itself a tactic.
And I'm like, bro, like I'm bigger than you now. I didn't charge these kids anything. I'm here on time. Like, how fucking rude to like do this to these guys. But yeah, I waited. I was respectful. But then as soon as he started opening up with the personal attacks, then obviously it affords me a bit of room to be a little bit nasty as well. And if somebody wants to get really dirty, I'll roll in the mud if you want depending. So yeah.
Guys, can I just get 2 more likes, please? 2 likes. Thank you.
So once somebody, it's kind of like, have you ever seen the YouTube channel Every Frame a Painting?
Yeah.
Have you seen the episode on Jackie Chan?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched almost all their videos. So
Okay, I have too.
Yeah.
There's
Any of you guys familiar with this channel?
a part in the Jackie Chan one that he points out that's very good, and it's very satisfying from a heroic perspective, that when you're watching heroes fight villains, the hero almost always starts off from behind and has to catch up. And
the underdog story.
that makes the victory, one, it gives them the moral authority to fight, because the other person is like more powerful. Usually they're up to no good. And 2, it gives you a very satisfying end.
No matter what film, Jackie always starts beneath his opponents. He has no shoes, he's handcuffed, he has a bomb in his mouth. From this point, he has to fight his way back to the top. Each action creates a logical reaction.
And I've noticed that when
So the same thing applies when you are in a debate or a conversation. That especially when, again, if there's the 2 different types, but if you're talking to just the other person and you guys are just having a hopefully civil conversation, then you want to show them that despite the fact that you may hold a different opinion, that you are going to respect them as a person, that you might attack their ideas, but you're not going to attack them. And then, of course, if it comes to something public where, there's an audience, then, you can just, as he was just saying, react to what they do and lead by following.
when I engage with certain people, if I come out of the gate really hard, I can be very overwhelming, very overbearing. I can destroy somebody. If you want to see that person get destroyed, it's cool.
Yeah.
But it just kind of looks a little like, ugh. But if I wait for the other person to lead, be a little bit nasty to me, then I can start to like ramp up my stuff. But the other person always looks more unhinged
There you go. Then you get the green light.
than me because I'm always being responsive to them rather than coming over the top and be like, this is Milo. He's a piece of shit. Let's go. Which would afford him the opportunity to come at me. And then I would look like the one that was instigating everything. So I'm very.
And specifically in that debate, if you don't remember, it was, not a very substantial debate, but it was basically what you would think of, if you think of Destiny and you think of Milo and the stuff that they were kind of just going back and forth about that stuff. It got pretty personal, but point being that these debates they're always about, defending your position, but depending on the type of debate, the tactics that you want to use are going to be very different. So that's the first step in debate, is figuring out what is the vibe here. What are we really doing here? Then of course we do have the poll going right now. Do you know how to form a syllogism? We have yes, no, and 50% of you don't know what that is. Don't worry, we will go over it. But in the comments for the replay gang, let me know. Do you know how to form a syllogism?
Very deliberate when I think about all these things. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny you use the word reactivity because I see it in a different way. I was seeing non-reactivity, which is he insulted your wife. You didn't answer that. You just continued with whatever your statement was. And I thought, I've seen you in a handful of podcasts. You've got a number of ways that you handle insults, but one of them is I see you saying, yes, I will match their energy and maybe return an insult, but I'm not going to fight or deny or struggle against the shitty bucket that you've put me in. Cause I think, at that point now you're debating whether or not, I don't know, just somewhere you don't want to be in the conversation.
I usually bring something to an equal level. Like I think with Milo, what did I start digging on? The,
we went with the cancellation and the,
So basically, before he goes on, this is now a second thing to balance with, understand what type of debate are you having. Then when you understand the type of debate you're having or the type of person you're debating, then you can decide what type of energy to bring and whether or not matching energy, like he was talking about, is the right thing to do. And if you saw that debate with Milo, and he was not looking good, if Destiny hadn't allowed Milo to kind of go and dig himself that hole before he, went after him, it would just make Destiny look worse.
Something like that.
You eventually hit him with the cocaine in the bath.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I started to, There was
I had to build up to that.
something that I said, and the pedophile stuff. And then he was like, what did you say? And I was like, yeah, I said this. What do you want to say about it? And then he just like stared at me for 20 seconds and then continued on. Yeah.
I don't think you can tell when it pops out whether it's going to like or not. Maybe if it's your kid, but I'm sure you'll ensure that's the case.
I mean, you know all about kids liking, huh? Isn't that?
Would I? Would I? Tell us more about that. Would I?
And then
Because that's a pretty big allegation.
the silence. So what we just saw was him laying a trap that Milo wants to go low. And because because Destiny has let Milo set the tone, now he understands the game that they're playing. And because they're playing that game, then he can navigate as he wants to. Shout out to Daniel Cabrera. Welcome to the party. How's it going? I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Would I?
Would you what?
Would I know about that?
Well, seems like it. Isn't that what you got canceled for?
No, I got canceled for talking about the fact that I was a victim of clerical sexual abuse. I was...
So about like little boys liking, right?
Oh, I see. Okay, well, yeah.
There you go. You got there eventually. It's okay.
Okay.
I can tell you're coming down right now, but I'll walk you through the rest of my jokes if you need me to.
No, fair enough. Okay.
So if Destiny had gone after him like that before Milo said, well, if it was your kid, now you've crossed a line. And now I'm ready to go. And because I've been nice, because I've been calm, because I've been respectful this whole time, I don't get any backlash for matching your energy. Hey, shout out to the Camcast. Welcome to the party, brother. Good to see you. Yeah, Milo definitely is a joke. And like I said, we covered this whole debate. So definitely go check that out if you haven't seen it. Welcome to the party, brother.
Okay, are you bringing it? Fine.
Another common thing that I saw you just had the whatever podcast with about abortion,
We covered
and in
that
that
too.
it echoed something I saw in the Milo, which was this how dare you statement came up in both of them. How dare you?
Yeah.
And it seemed in both of them super disingenuous. And I'm just curious if you've sensed that in the moment. And
of course he did. That's why he responded the way that he did. And they're going to show a couple clips if you didn't see that. But it's very deliberate. And that's the bottom line through all of this, is that you have to be, you can't just be having a casual conversation when you are having a debate. A debate and a casual conversation are not the same things. And so if you're having a casual conversation, then you can just be, kind of in the moment, thinking about things, whatever. But if you're having a debate, you have to be very conscious of a lot more things and be a lot more deliberate about things. Very British? She's not British. That's Greta Thunberg. Opus said, Milo is one of the biggest grifters I've seen. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but in his case, it is spot on. 100% agreed. 100% agreed. I mean, there was a time when he, I used the word firebrand when we were talking about Anthony Weiner the other day, but Milo, again, was a firebrand in his heyday. And he, didn't have great opinions, but he was great at packaging them. He was great at putting them in a way that people found them entertaining. And then I think he just got lost in the sauce. And I don't know what happened.
You seem to just steam right through it.
I'll just laugh at it. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and play games around some moral grandstanding. Mm-hmm. If I've actually mortally wounded or offended your psyche on some shit, it needs to be some really deep stuff. If I'm making fun of a dead parent or some tragedy, then I can understand that. But how dare you do this politically? It's the oldest trick in the book, and I'm we're not politicians here running for city council or something. This isn't going to do anything in this conversation with me.
Yeah, and that's the point, is that when you understand that the other person is now deliberately acting indignant, then you can see they're not actually offended. This is yet another tactic to try to get the upper hand in the conversation. And so when you understand that, then you don't have to treat it as genuine outrage.
Crazy, but there is that. I don't suspect that the women that you were speaking with thought about this in advance, but there was a performative aspect. So people seem to intuit that when you're in a debate, you are performing. And one of the ways that you can win this performance is by assuming the role of victim incredibly powerfully. So setting someone up to have hurt you in a way that is too grievous for you to continue. And I've seen even people that I respect, like Christopher Hitchens, used to do this when he would talk about Christianity.
Shout out to the late, great Christopher Hitchens.
How dare you say the deed of the blah, blah, and talk about all the evils at the feet of Christianity. And it is... When the audience is
Stephen Fry did that same thing when somebody asked him, what would you say to God when you get to heaven? He's like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Child cancer. Yeah, I remember.
It's powerful, and the demonstration of moral indignancy is an incredibly powerful thing, even though it shouldn't be as strong.
I don't know what just happened. Sorry about that. But in talking about Christopher Hitchens, we can be what's the word? We can be inspired by the fact that Christopher Hitchens was a great debater, even though he used the tactics that we saw in the women that Destiny debated on whatever about abortion, and they were doing it in a underhanded way. But it's different than not understanding how you're trying to navigate the conversation, but actually trying to poison the well and muddy the water. Oh my goodness. Shout out to Dan Jensen. Welcome to the party with the 89 DDK. Thank you so much. It's been a while, Dan. I know you've been working hard. Come here, more. Come. We've had to move him around a little because he gets scared in the Come. Right here. Let's go. Good job. There you go. Thank you so much, Dan. Yeah, we've had to move him around, but he is still part of the show. Thank you. I just got to stop the show for Dan because he's been working really hard, and the fact that he can still come through and support the show means a lot to me, brother. Thank you so much. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. gotta do a little math here. But
strong logical thing. So I'm curious how you think about debates, because clearly, well, maybe you don't think this, what wins a debate is not necessarily the best argument or the most sound logical approach to it. There is a bit of performance art that's going on. Is that something that you think about?
I wouldn't say that it's so much a performance art. I would say that there are multiple layers to a debate, and you don't only have to manage the logical discourse back and forth. You also have to manage the meta expectations of what's going on in the conversation as well.
Exactly. So what I was just saying about how when you're in a casual conversation, you can just be in the conversation thinking about, oh, what did they say? What do I think about that? But the meta expectations are, how are you going to respond to this? And what did that make him think? There's another level that you have to be aware of, and that's where that deliberate nature, that's where it needs to be focused.
Well, so I realized like about 20 or 30 minutes into that debate that this logically, I felt like I had the upper hand, because typically when people start engaging in like a lot of crazy argumentation, it's because they know they can't combat you logically. So I knew logically I had the upper hand. So then the rest of the time I'm like writing this, I'm trying to figure out like, how do I manage this on a meta level? Because this is going to be like a shit show otherwise. So I'm trying to think like, do I need to go really hard on the insults? Should I start screaming at them and cut them off? Should I just be quiet and let them continue to interrupt me so I look good for the camera? Should I appeal to the moderator? Like I'm trying to think of like all these things as they're like shouting at me to figure out like
Shout out again to Dan. But yeah, exactly. All of these things are very deliberate, and you have to be able to do them on the fly. You have to be able, because the other person's not going to stop and wait. If they have a moment to make you look bad, then they're going to come right in and hammer it home. You need to be able to, in real time, understand not just the conversation that you're having, but the conversation that the other person is trying to make this turn into.
Come to? What was the sort of conclusion that you found?
Oh, I missed that. Let me back it up a little bit.
Quiet and let them continue to interrupt me so I look good for the camera. Should I appeal to the moderator? Like I'm trying to think of like all these things as they're like shouting at me to figure out like
what did you come to? What was the sort of conclusion that you found?
At some point, there were a few points that I wanted to finish. So I'm like, I need to, if they're going to keep cutting me off, I'll let them cut me off for a while. But at some point I need to say like, I'm going to finish this. Let me finish this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to finish this.
And I think I pointed that out specifically, again, going back to the whatever podcast discussion with the two women about abortion, that at first he was same kind of thing with Milo, just letting them interrupt each other and interrupt him. So that by the time he was like, she's gonna interrupt me 5 times, he starts talking. See, I told you she's gonna interrupt me. He doesn't seem uppity. He doesn't seem misogynistic as she tried to make it seem, because at first he was very cordial.
I did that a few times. When the one lady was like, I'm going to treat you like a child. I'm like, okay, well, I'll be a child then. Like you kind of like get a little bit memey, fun with it or whatever.
Well, you ended several of the insults, which I thought was...
Yeah, anytime somebody pulls out like, you're misogynistic, I'm like, yeah, I am. Yeah.
I don't know. I've never talked to a misogynistic man like this before.
Okay. All right. She's just accused you of being misogynistic. I mean, do you have a response to that?
I am.
I don't think he has one.
Well, no, come on,
I'm being honest.
You're not a misogynist.
I hate women.
And it's getting worse by the moment. You added to it, and it diffused it so quickly in that.
Yeah, before the cameras were rolling, I admit I'm a little edgy. I was being a little edgy too. But like one of the women across the table from me, I didn't know she was trying to set up something for the debate. She was like, I heard you defend the N-word in private. And I was like, oh, no, I defend it in public too. And she was like,
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I have not heard his specific argument as to why he believes that it's okay from the blue-haired progressive perspective for white people to be able to use that slur in private, but I don't really care. But brilliant. She comes at him with another emotional argument. I mean, that wasn't but an emotional statement that she's trying to paint him in a certain light. I heard that you are okay with some version of racism. And so he sees that. He understands that. And he's just going to lean into it. Yeah, of course. And Dan working like a crazy man. That's how you get it done. Says, I can't stand that lady. She was, both of them were but the bigger one was definitely on. I just could not. The sound of her voice, the amount of interruptions, the indignant nature of everything she had to say, really, really bad. But again, he was able to handle it because of the things that we've been talking about. He saw what was good. He read the vibe, and that thing when she called him a child, and he starts going like this, and like, well, I used to say I'm a child, so I'm gonna be a child, and like, brilliant. Because what is anything about? No, you're just a child. What does that have to do with the actual conversation that we're having? It doesn't. You're just looking for rhetorical points because, again, they know when we were talking about earlier, that they're not just having the conversation amongst themselves, but they're having the conversation for an audience. So they're playing to the audience. Now, if you're watching a debate, you have to also be able to understand to what degree are they just playing to get me on their side, and to what degree are they acting in good faith. And that's not always easy. That's not always easy. Shout out to Dan. The other one was at least pretty. Indeed she was. Indeed she was.
Like, why would you ever say that? And I'm like, well, sometimes black people just really piss me off. And then she didn't have anything else to say. And it was like, we just rolled into it. And like, I can tell both of them were like a little bit irked by the answer. Like, oh, I don't know. What do you want? Like, what the like, I'm not going to, we're not doing this right now.
But behind that is the sense that this is not a good faith engagement. So I'm not going to give you my actual justifications and reasons for some of these things. I'm going to play into the worst stereotype that you are implying that I fall into to kind of prove to you that you don't even care. You're just looking for some sort of moral victory. Or
a little bit. It's also like choosing, like it's like choosing your battle arena. You like, if somebody is trying to pull you into a certain area,
this is the other side of letting them, you know, the whole thing about being reactive and letting the other person set the tone. So you do want them to set the tone, but you don't want to let them to define the terms of the argument. You don't want them to. You don't want to be fighting on their turf. You just want to be fighting in the way that they want to. So, listen.
Battle arena. You like, if somebody is trying to pull you into a certain area, this is a huge problem I used to have. I don't know if this is ADHD or if it was just my like hubris, but generally when I'm having a debate with somebody, I'm usually pretty informed of the topic and I'm willing to follow them around anywhere they want to go. Like, we can start a debate about Donald Trump and end up at the World Economic Forum, whatever. I'll go wherever you want to go because we can do that. And
that comes from confidence. That comes from the confidence that okay, if you want to take the conversation out of where I was prepared to talk about, that's fine. Because I'm comfortable and confident in the positions that I hold. I'm also confident enough that if it goes somewhere where I don't know enough, I'm not going to pretend that I know enough. I'm just going to say, I don't know. I'm going to have to take your word for it, or I will have to circle back because I don't know enough about that. Confidence. The only way that you get to have this confidence is to be aware of what you know, of what you don't know, what you know you don't know, and what you don't know that you don't know. A couple comments here. Yeah, in the whatever podcast. The other one was not half bad, and Destiny actually she did a reaction to the debate that then Destiny was watching, and she was kind of complaining that the bigger girl was cutting her off, and they were from different organizations. So pretty funny.
In my mind, I'm like, well, I'm confident, I know the material, and that's fine. But when I realize this on a meta conversational level, what's actually happening is I'm not actually solidifying any wins in the eyes of any audience, because anytime I'm getting close in one area, they'll pivot to another topic until invariably they will find something that I don't know much about, and I'll get stumped on an issue. And then the first real L, because I'm not going to just pivot to something else if I don't know. I'll be like, okay, I'm not sure. I look like I've taken an L after an hour of them running from topic to topic to topic.
Right. So that's why the tone of the argument, you want to let them set it, because you're comfortable in, you know, getting heated but staying rational, or just being calm. You're comfortable with that. So whatever energy level they want to have this conversation, we can have that. But that being said, that is a different thing than, you know, letting them pull up some random hypothetical that doesn't match, but it's kind of the same, but it's kind of not. You have to be able to say, no, that's not relevant here. What we're talking about is X, Y, Z. You're trying to bring in how A and B may be in the alphabet, but we're not talking about the whole alphabet. We're talking about X, Y, and Z, and keep it focused on the things that you want to talk about. And he's saying, I will follow, you know, if they want to go to QRS, we can talk about QRS, but inevitably they will get you to that point where you don't know. And that is the meta, not ethics. I was going to say meta ethics, but the just the meta aspect of it all. You don't want those moments where you look bad, even though you're being more charitable.
So if somebody wants to drag me to a certain area, like, oh, you're a misogynist, like, okay, and like, I'll just
struggle streaming. Come on.
Like move past it, because I don't want to have that fight right there, right now, because that's just not what I'm looking to have a battle over.
Yeah. And I've sensed, and I don't know if this is because you don't want to fight, but you have a way of not taking
Oh,
else by employing the same thing, which somebody will say something and you'll just go, okay. You know, and there's this sense that you're communicating is this is almost, I'm too tired of this. This is frustrating.
This is below me. This is below me. That's the energy that he gives off when you're a child, you're a misogynist, you're this. Like, all right, whatever. It's beneath me to even to even take that into account, and that undercuts again in the eyes of the audience. That undercuts what the person even said. Can we get one more like, guys? One more. There's 8 of us in here, only 3 likes. Just one, please. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Or beneath my intellectual engagement at this point.
A little bit, but you have to be careful with that too, because like something that I used to do that I've tried not to do as much is sometimes I'll be going down
Come off all snooty.
such a dumb line of argumentation, and it's like so frustrating. At the end, I'll just be like, okay, sure.
Okay.
And then move on to the next thing. And maybe in the eyes of my audience, it looks like, okay, like obviously this guy's dumb, he's moving on. But I think to a neutral audience and to the other person's audience, it looks like I'm giving up because I know I've lost the point. So that's like a meta thing I have to manage as well. Like I can't do that. That's why.
So interesting. So there's another thing to balance. This idea of what you're accusing me of is so beneath me, I'm not even going to give it the air. And balancing that with the other side of, well, if I don't address this, it just makes it seem like you're right. And so I think that's more of a case by case, like, is this something that I want to address? Or is this something that thank you for the likes, guys. Is this something I want to address? Or is this something that I don't need to? And just move on. Will people seem that I'm, or exactly. Yeah. As Dan said, you'll sound arrogant. That like, oh, this is beneath me, but sometimes things are beneath you. So it's not a clear, a hard and fast rule, but absolutely correct, sir.
I don't know if I did any abortion about it. I think I did, but after somebody finishes a ramble, I try not to let people just finish their thing and be like, okay, and I think I might have even explicitly said, I can't let them just do their whole thing and get their point off. Like I am going to restate my argument until we move on to the next thing.
That's a trick that I learned from him. And it seems so simple, but if you never thought about it before, then you never thought about it before. When somebody will try to obfuscate the conversation, you ask a question and they're trying to, again, move the conversation, not just the tone, but the actual content of the conversation. They're trying to move it away from what you're talking about and go somewhere else. And so they'll go on and on and on and on. So let's say, do you think that life begins at conception? And they'll say, well, conception is this, and go on talking about viability and consciousness and this. Just let them ramble out. And say, okay, so the question was, do you believe that life begins at conception? That's a way to not let them drag you into these areas that we're talking about, and also command the respect that you're not going to be able to you, the opponent, is not going, your opponent is not going to be able to just walk all over you. You're going to set the terms and you're reacting to their vibe, but you're in my house. You're in my house.
Because if I just let them restate and I go, okay, fine, and we move on, it's going to look to the audience like I'm agreeing with them or I've like given up arguing my point, Yeah.
And within all of this is the idea that you're not taking steps to open your interlocutor up as much as possible. You understand that the goal is not like they're probably, because we're on camera and representing an organization, have an entrenched position that is not going to move. We're not going to cover new ground in their mind. They're going to fight that.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to an audience who is responding to, there's a bit of like power cues in this. Who's taking L's, who's winning. And that is how they're forming their worldview from a place of a bit more receptivity because they're sitting in the comfort of their own home.
And of course we know this, if you've ever watched an online debate, there's W's and L's going through the chat the whole time. But this is the metric that we use to understand where this is going. But because it's a subjective thing, it doesn't mean whoever's getting the more W's in the chat necessarily wins, unless you want to say that's what we're measuring on. Hey, shout out to Datrix. Welcome to the party. Said if you want to see an example of logical fallacies of the unthinking majority that garner themselves a place in the cult of personality, look no further than the witch sense of Monty Python's HG. That's another one of those that I missed, and got immigrant parents, and there's a lot of 70s, 80s stuff that I missed out on. So never seen Monty Python, but I'm sure the rest of you are laughing. Welcome to the party, brother.
Yeah. Like if I'm arguing about topic X with a person who's the head of organization, we support X to the death.
Yeah.
Like you're not changing your mind. I'm not gonna have a debate with Donald Trump and convince him to be a Democrat. I'm not gonna have a debate with Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton and convince them to, be a free market absolutist, capitalist, like Republican. Like,
so there's another good point: is understand the person that you are debating. Not only their intentions, like, okay, is this person trying to just understand me, or is this person, trying to win over other people? That's not the only thing that you want to keep in mind. But given that, any given person might have these goals, this specific person, what goals do they have? What can I reasonably expect in terms of their, intellectual moving on the issue? It's tough to navigate, but when you put all these things together, you have a bit of a better understanding of how do I approach this conversation. Hey, shout out to Trey Williams. What is good? What is good? Call me the old MTR. I will take it. Thank you. Welcome to the party.
Yeah, so I understand people in certain positions of influence or ideological organization are going to suffer some degree of audience capture to where they're expected to give certain answers and they have to give certain answers and there's no maneuverability in there for them. So I'm just there to explore how deeply have you thought about this. And then once I've hit that rock bottom, I make my case to the audience and we kind of move on.
So that audience capture is something that this is all on you guys. This is all on you guys because when it comes to my content, because I try very, very hard to, just come out here with my opinions and, not block myself from being influenced by what you guys say, but engage with you on a level that I would engage with anybody else. Not that I'm the one who's on screen and you guys are the ones in chat, that we're all people. We're all having conversations here. And the idea is to get what I'm thinking and what I see out of this conversation. But I also love that you guys will push back on me and we can get into some heated debates because we are both comfortable with that type of interaction. And so if you ever see me, maybe I'm in a debate with somebody and you've heard me say something before and I'm not saying it now, call me out. Because if I can get away with some stuff in the moment, we're not perfect. I try to be honest. I try to be straightforward. But when emotions get into it, if I'm debating somebody and I'm losing and I might use some underhanded tactic that's not in good faith and all that stuff, call it out, because never do I want to just pander to you guys. Not only do I respect you too much, but there's so much to gain on my end because of how ideologically diverse you guys are and how just smart you guys are, that if I was just feeding you BS, then I would never get my own views challenged. And I need you guys for that. And you do it a lot and you do it well. Dietrich says, I'll send you the clip. It shouldn't be copyrightable. It's a non-associated channel and it's been up for 9 years. Word up. Well, let's check it out. Monty Python, though. I'm gonna stay away from that, though. Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll definitely check it out in the Indian Jesus Discord server where the party never ends. That's right, 24/7. We are in there hanging out, playing games, having conversations, doing all that stuff. And after every single live stream, we go in there for an after panel where you are not stuck behind your keyboard, but you are on screen with me and everybody else. You can cam up if you want to. You don't have to. But definitely come check it out.
Do you feel that present in your streams, the audience capture for you?
Absolutely not. My audience hates some of the takes that I have.
Okay.
To this day, some of my takes.
That's how it should be. I want you guys to hate some of the things that I say because that's natural. It would be weird if you agreed with everything I say. I would like you to agree with most of the things I say because I think I'm right. But I can't be right about everything. And that's where you guys come in.
My audience are really unpopular. But I'm not like ideologically owned by anything. So I have a lot more flexibility to kind of like grow and change and move. Like I call myself like the omni-liberal because I'm like, broadly speaking, I'm a liberal, but I try to take like good positions from other people. Mm-hmm. Like I like guns a lot. I'm very big.
See, this is why I love Dan so much. I've got other mods here. Dan's the only one be dropping links. Thank you, Dan. Dan the man.
Proponent of like self-defense and defensive property. I'm really big on like expanded taxation for good social programs. Like I've got like a lot of views all over the place, but I justify them all from like an internal schema that I make available to the public. And yeah, I don't have to worry about like, if somebody brings me up a really good argument for like, Steven, I know that you like guns a lot, but here are really compelling reasons why we should probably get rid of guns. I'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll probably change my mind on it then. That's a good argument. Like I'm not like an NRA card carrying member or like a Republican advocate that works for the RNC where I have to have these positions or else I'm threatening some aspect of my income or my livelihood, you know?
Right. And that's the like what I want my brand to be is to be me. So that if you disagree with something that I say, that's not off brand. That's just what this is. And Dietrich, shout out to Dietrich, says in the Discord general chat, if you guys aren't in the Discord, you are missing out on all the treasures hidden from the world. Come check it out. Thank you. And I definitely second that. Opus says liberals love guns. That doesn't mean anything. Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't mean anything if they're going to vote to, erode your rights to own them. But this is kind of, playing into what we're talking about. If they do love guns and they're voting in a way that doesn't align with loving guns, then the only way to fix that is conversation. And so many of them are ideologically captured, that guns bad, guns bad, guns bad, guns bad. That the amount of conversation that you would actually have to do to unwind all of that is a lot. It doesn't, we all know that the numbers bore out that guns are good, at least given our cultural sensitivities or whatever you want to say. Guns are good. But if you think that they're not good, then just showing those stats from somebody who's telling you you're wrong is not going to work. And so this is where we get into, okay, you're having the debate with somebody on stage or online. And instead of trying to convince that person, you convince all the people that came along with them. Opus said the far left aren't liberals. Facts. They are socialists. Super facts. Absolutely. Unwanted Foe said nobody should have guns except for their security guards, the corrupt police, and the corrupt government, right? Sounds like a plan to them. Opus said they might call themselves liberal, but they aren't. Absolutely. They are, the opposite. They're authoritarian.
My audience looks to me to be Stephen Bunnell and to have Stephen Bunnell's point of view, not to be a progressive or a conservative or a liberal or whatever.
And that's what I want from you guys.
What about ego attachment to winning or losing, or do you notice or feel that in yourself?
Not much, because I never lose an argument, so I don't really have to worry
so
about
yeah,
the ego thing.
That could never happen.
I try to employ strategies to manage my ego, especially when I debate with so many idiots. It's very hard not to feel very egotistical sometimes, but like...
Yeah. Dan brings up a good point. Guns can't be good or bad. It's the people that use them who decide if they are for the good or bad. So, again, as I was just saying, thank you for pushing back on that and allow me to amend my statement that the right to bear arms is a good thing. Given our culture, it is a good thing that people should have the access to guns. Thank you, Dan.
I try to be very careful, and I try to qualify my positions very carefully when I'm having certain conversations. So a really good example recently are the Tates. I very much believe that they are guilty of sex trafficking, assuming everything they've said in the YouTube videos is true.
Yeah. So here is another great tactic of not playing both sides, but presenting the logic or the principle of your position from a left-right position. If it's Tate, if it's pro-Tate, anti-Tate, the logic of your principle shouldn't change that much based on the circumstances. Obviously different situations are going to be different, but if something is happening over here, just because you like Andrew Tate doesn't mean that you should treat it when the same thing is happening over here. And so, what he said is absolutely true. Assuming everything that he said in his videos are true, Andrew Tate absolutely broke the law that is sex trafficking. The Loverboy method is part of that. And then there's questions around other stuff too. And you can say that you don't think that the Loverboy method should be illegal. I kind of don't either, but it is. So I'm going to back this up a little bit, and I want you to pay attention to the aspect of framing your argument in a way that is going to be non-confrontational, or at least as minimally confrontational as you possibly can. Opus said, some teenager near me just got arrested for selling illegal guns. What? They showed a picture of like 30 guns. I'm in New York with some of the strictest gun control in the country. That is crazy. When they make the gun control laws that are in place effective, then we can talk about implementing more. Actually, I'm good with no more. But, certainly no more if they're not going to effectively use the ones that we have. That's wild. That is wild. So yeah, let's back this up a little bit.
So a really good example recently are the Tates. I very much believe that they are guilty of sex trafficking, assuming everything they've said in the YouTube videos is true. They've laid out everything.
So that's the key word, assuming that everything they said is true.
But I think they should have.
Do you want to take a minute just to talk about that? I've mentioned it on the podcast, but
yeah, basically Andrew Tate has very explicitly detailed how he utilizes women that he's got sexual relationships with to bring in other women that he's promised, monogamous marriages to, that he's asked for servitude and loyalty from. When he brings them in, he'll bring in his bottom bitch. He'll have that bottom bitch convince the girl to start doing sex work, and then he'll get them kind of like enrolled in these programs. He talks about how he defrauds them on their taxes to steal more money from them than what he originally takes. And then there's
And that's a big point too, is that even if you don't think any of the sex stuff applies, he literally directly admitted to fraud. Like he said, yeah, they're stupid. You tell them that you have to take out this much money for taxes and then you keep it. That's fraud. Now, it's kind of funny. A little bit, but it's fraud. Opus says they also need to make gun control laws in place. They also need to make the gun control laws in place constitutional before they talk about any more. Absolutely.
There's a whole bunch of other accusations in those indictments.
And this is in like a course that he had. I saw something on YouTube.
I don't even know if that was a course. I think that was just him talking.
Sure, it was him talking to the camera.
He's giving courses as well.
I was blown away by some of the things.
But when I say this, again, I'm very careful to say, if
that's true,
if he's true, he could be just lying for the camera. That's possible.
That could be cool guy stuff.
Yeah. And
I think that would be honestly the best case scenario, because then he's not in jail. Then he's there's not a bunch of women that are abused, and then he can easily spin that into I tricked the system or whatever, and still be Andrew Tate. But doesn't really look like that's going to happen.
It should still have to be proven in court beyond a reasonable doubt, because that's the standard the world uses generally for criminal convictions, which I support. So because I've given those qualifications, if it does come out that he is acquitted in court because either he was lying to the camera or they just don't have evidence, then it's very easy for me to look back and say, well, hey, this is my position all along. He should have a stay in court. He won, so he won, right?
Mm-hmm. And even before, Andrew Tate was blowing up, the first time that I covered him, I specifically said, I know that there are allegations of sex trafficking and stuff like that around Andrew Tate. Knowing that, and knowing that he is the cam girl guy, that you would expect that there would be some false allegations around that. But you might also expect that he's actually doing that shit. So I've always had the same position that, hey, let's see what's going on. I didn't fully understand the Loverboard method thing in the beginning, but now, like, it is what it is, man. It's a stupid law, I agree, but stupid law was broken.
And then that's it. I think it's very careful when you have positions to qualify them so that you have space to move away from them, given the level of conviction you have for that idea. So like, for instance, right now, my position on abortion, you saw me argue. My position on abortion is, I think that conscious beings should be preserved. Conscious human thought should be preserved. But if you don't even have that capacity for conscious human thought, then you're not worthy of moral consideration. So corpses have lost that capacity. Brain dead, comatose people in persistent vegetative states have lost that. And fetuses before 20 weeks have lost that. But let's say somebody came up with a study like, hold on, Steven, you said you're pro-choice in the first trimester. Here's a new scientific study that showed that fetuses, 100%, they have conscious thought by 2 weeks. then I would go, oh, okay, well, that's my marker for when it should be preserved. So I would say I'm probably against abortion now.
Yeah.
But because of the qualifications I've given before, I can very easily move off that position without feeling some egotistical attachment to it, to where, well, now if the position is attacked, now you're attacking my character.
Exactly. Now that the position and your character have to be separate. Because, Opus is saying, I don't have a horse in the race as far as Tate. I think it's nuts that anyone would give a rat's ass what he has to say. I think if you were a little bit younger, and you didn't have the adolescence that you did have, you might see it a little bit more easily. Even, I'm not that much younger than you, and I definitely see why people care about what he has to say. But that another important point about being very deliberate in what you're saying is not tying your character, your personality, your any of these things to a claim that you can't possibly know. What does Dan say? If we don't know, we don't know. So there's no sense in putting all your eggs in the basket that he's not guilty, because you hope that he is. And then he is guilty, and what do you do now? Just be honest. Hey, I like some of the things that he's saying, but that's as far as it goes. So whatever happens with all of this, I've never co-signed him as a person. I've co-signed the message that he, these specific messages that he's put out there. Opus said, imagine your position for being a corpse and a fetus are in the same category behind your being your argument for a position on abortion. That is sick. Yeah, and I mean, this is why, we went over in depth during the whatever debate, but this consciousness argument doesn't make sense, because it very well could be, like, what did he just say? This very well could happen, and he would be okay with killing all of the babies that he said don't have consciousness if this were to happen.
But because of the qualifications I've
So he's saying that, he's for consciousness, 20 weeks, whatever. But
Steven, you said you're pro-choice in the first trimester. Here's a new scientific study that showed that fetuses, 100%, they have conscious thought by 2 weeks. Then I would go, oh, okay, well, that's my marker for when it should be preserved. So I would say I'm probably against abortion now.
so, and that's a good thing to be malleable in your positions. But with this one specifically, that's not good enough. Because if you change if that were to happen, which very well could happen, then you're then admitting, oh, I've been wrong about all of this. And I was so strong that we should allow this procedure up until 20 weeks, 24 weeks, whatever it was, when all of the time I've been wrong. So, I mean, that's not specifically to do with the debating like a pro, but it's just not a tenable position. It's just not a tenable position. Human life begins at conception. There is no other way around that. Dan says, the point that there are so many young girls, I'm not ready yet. Usually I'm in my 8 o'clock mode. I'm still just hanging out. Take 2. The point that there are so many young guys listening to Tate. That says a lot of the world we live in. It does. But I don't know that it's necessarily as bleak as maybe you want to think of it, because it's showing, it's highlighting the issue. It's showing us, oh, okay, we really do need to make sure that kids, specifically young boys, have a strong masculine figure in their lives. We knew that, but having something that is going to shove it in the faces of people who, I'm a strong, independent woman, I don't need no man, all that kind of stuff, it's not going to hit home until, we have situations like Tate, getting in the ears of 11-year-olds. And then it's like, oh, maybe I'm not, mom and dad. And maybe by not being mom and dad, there was no dad. And Andrew Tate filled the role of dad. Opus said a fetus not only has the potential to develop consciousness, but almost a certainty. Yep, it's almost a certainty. Hey, shout out to Indie Film. Welcome to the party, brother. Said I'm agreeing with the unique DNA position. Yeah, I mean it's I don't get how you can disagree with that. I understand the notion that Destiny is talking about with this marker of consciousness, but exactly because of what he just said, that's not good enough. If you're not sure that you can't be wrong about this specifically, then you shouldn't be saying, okay, it's probably okay to do this long, probably okay to do the procedure up to 20 weeks, but it's not.
Yeah.
But because of the qualifications I've given before, I can very easily move off that position without feeling some egotistical attachment to it.
Let's not forget that part too, because those are two different things there. We're talking about the actual abortion argument, and then again, taking the meta aspect of this particular conversation of whatever the issue is, whatever the topic is, you need to be able to address it in a way that you're not tying it to your personality. You're not tying it to who you are as a character. Hi, Bubs. No, nothing else yet. Yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah? Okay. That one's on me. And so that if you do end up being wrong about something, that you can just, okay, I was wrong. Well, let's keep it pushing.
To where, well, now if the position is attacked, now you're attacking my character, and people aren't going to suffer character attacks. I'm not going to. So now you're like roped into fighting for this position, like you're fighting for your life because you're so closely identified with it.
Yeah, it sounds like your positions are, to the best degree possible, built from philosophical foundations upwards to policy, upwards to what we know to be true.
Yeah,
And that's the only way to do it without a top-down thing like a dogmatic ideology. Now, again, you guys know how much I talk about how I really do appreciate Christian values, even though I'm an atheist. But when you are an atheist, especially when you grew up in the church and that switch goes off, the process of understanding, okay, what is real, what is just, what is right, what is moral, that is something that needs to be built from the ground up. And too many people are either too dumb, too lazy, or whatever else that they just choose not to. And I think it was Vivek Ramaswamy who was saying that if you have a God-sized hole in your heart, something's going to fill it. And I agree with that. And better the secular moral structure that I talk about that has a lot of overlap with Christian values than the leftist government ideology that we see too many atheists pick up today.
the conviction matches like the fundamentalness of the belief. So like, I don't have a strong attachment at all to capitalism. I just think it happens to be the best organization of an economy right now. I do have a very strong attachment and a high conviction to creating a society that serves the interests and needs of most people to the best of our abilities without working to the detriment of too many people. I feel very strongly about that. Capitalism is a good tool for it. But if you show me that like a fully socialist utopia would actually work better, I can abandon capitalism immediately. I'm not like a hardcore capitalist. I mean, I am in that I support it, but only insofar as it serves those fundamental philosophical positions.
So that should not turn any of you off, what he said about capitalism. Because if we were to see that there is some type of socialist utopia that would work, I would expect myself and you also to change your mind that, oh, every socialist thing in the past has been wrong, but this is proven to be different. With new information comes new understanding.
And if you show me something that serves those positions better, well, then I'll change, because that's what I really care about.
Why is that hard for people to do?
Generally because
They're stupid.
most people don't super ground out their positions philosophically. They tend to inherit what I would call like trees or systems of belief from other people.
Yep.
And typically what will happen is if you say one thing, it lights up a whole bunch of tangential things. And all of these things, like a ball of yarn, are tied together. And you can't really give on any of them without all of it falling apart. So for instance, if I say like, let's...
Before he goes into that, good point. Opus saying socialism at scale. Socialism absolutely can work on a small scale, but as a governmental thing for a country, certainly the size of the United States, nah, it's never going to work. And so that's exactly a good point to bring up, because again, as we see, there are situations where maybe within the family, that's more socialist. For the sake of argument, then there's no reason that you should have to say that, okay, my 2-year-old has to work for the food that he gets. That's not the best way to raise a family. But if you're so tied to capitalism, your kid's going to starve because you're going to make them work when they can't work. Now, again, obviously, I mean, facetious, but you get my point.
Let's talk about like 15 an hour minimum wage. If I'm having a talk with an intelligent person that's thought about it, they might say 15 an hour minimum wage is beneficial because there is some NBER studies that show that when you raise the minimum wage to a certain level, workers are paid more, benefits are already, companies aren't hurt that much. Okay, fine. Most people will say 15 an hour minimum wage is important because we need to pay a living wage. As soon as I've
Semantic obfuscation.
heard somebody say living wage, I know they probably think corporations are evil. They probably think workers and unions are good. They probably think the government is generally against the people and is taking the sides of corporate. Like they have all these other beliefs, and all of these beliefs are usually tied in a little bit to that 15 an hour minimum wage. So for me to get them off of 15 an hour minimum wage, what they really have to do is deconstruct a whole bunch of other thoughts that they have built in. It could be similarly too, if I'm arguing with right-leaning people, I like.
So before he moves on from that, the idea that you think, shit, what did you just, sorry, hold on, give me 1 second. Yeah. So if all these other beliefs are tied into the 15 an hour minimum wage, then instead of just showing a study that says 15-hour minimum wage will not work, then you're not going to convince that person. So if you're having a public discussion where you're playing to the audience, then yeah, those stats and all that stuff is going to do great. But if you're actually trying to change that person's mind, then as he said, this idea of 15-hour minimum wage is tied into a living wage. And so you have to deconstruct all the other things that brought them to that place in the first place. That's why it's typical that when you have somebody that has an idea, an incorrect idea, and they are shown hard data, hard evidence that conflicts with their idea, they go further into the wrong belief because they've tied it to their personality. Opus says, I believe in capitalism, but I am also the first person out there calling out things like this, like giant acquisitions like Microsoft buying Activision. Consolidation of production is never good for consumers, be it consolidation under giant companies or consolidation under government. Well said. That's certainly the other side of the coin is we have to understand what parts of capitalism are actually, the intended effects, and what, like the crony corporatist capitalism that we actually have. We understand that was not what we wanted, and now there's a different class of people, creating that and pulling the ladder up. That doesn't mean that capitalism is bad. That means that all the corruption is bad. Good point.
So for me to get them off of 15 an hour minimum wage, what they really have to do is deconstruct a whole bunch of other thoughts that they have built in. It could be similarly too, if I'm arguing with right-leaning people, I like to give a left and right example. So I'm not being partisan. If I could be a right-leaning person, we might argue about vaccines, right? For me to argue with them and convince them that the vaccine isn't horrible, well, to them, the vaccine is bad because Fauci and the FDA are corrupt, because the deep state runs everything, because the WF and Klaus Schwab, right? For them to roll over on the vaccine, they would also have to undo all that other stuff. So I think that's the issue. Usually when you're arguing with people, you're not arguing with somebody that has discreetly established a bunch of different policy positions from a really strong philosophical base.
They're just thinking dogmatically. Either everything they know has come from the leftist ideology, or it has come from God. That's it.
You're arguing with somebody that's inherited a collection of ideas and beliefs that are all interdependent on one another.
Yeah. And what I see is that often that collection is tied to tribal alignment.
Oftentimes.
And this is how I fit in my church growing up, or this is how I fit into my progressive group of friends in college. And you're actually threatening my survival socially.
Yeah.
So Opus said the vaccine is bad because it was unproven. I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think it was bad. I mean, I don't think it was appropriate for myself. I don't think it was bad. The overwhelming majority of people who took it did not get, any kind of serious sickness. And, I just think what is bad is the marketing around it, the lies, the attitude to which people who had questions, not even pushing back, just having regular medical questions. The mandates definitely were bad. But again, we want to be deliberate about what we are saying, because you say something like this, and now you're giving ammo to the other person. Oh, so you're an anti-vaxxer? Come on. But when you can say, hey, the vaccine did not deliver on what we were promised. Now we're not talking about the vaccine. We're still addressing the issue, but we're pinpointing, no, it's the lies. It's the corruption that is actually the problem. Not the fact that this medication exists and, you could take it if you want, or if you don't want, then, again, with the mandates, those are definitely bad because you should be able to deny any type of medical care or vaccine or anything like that. But we have to be deliberate about how we talk about this stuff.
Yes.
To start to disown and disinherit some of these beliefs. And that is, why the f would I put myself at risk for this conversation?
That's why I thought I brought this up, I think, actually, in another show this week where you've seen Men in Black, I trust, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's that conversation in the park that Kay has with Jay.
Yo, this sticks with me all the time. A person is smart. People are dumb. Put one in the chat if you remember that scene.
Where Jay says, why don't you just tell people that aliens are real? And Kay says, they couldn't handle it. And Jay says, well, I think people are smart. They could handle it. And then Kay says, a person is smart and people are stupid.
People are smart. They can handle it.
Oh, there it is.
A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it.
And I spent a lot of time this last month thinking about that quote, like why? And I think the answer that I kind of came to was the reason why is because we are, by default, we are very, very, very social creatures. By nature, this is why like scams and encounters work. By nature, we want to like appease the person in front of us. We want to like feel like we're communicating and connecting with people. When you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can get some very reasonable opinions from them. You're giving your take, hopefully in an empathetic way. They're understanding you and hearing you because like it's a one-on-one human interaction. There's a lot of reward there for coming to an agreement and understanding each other.
This is, it says people are cattle. And we talked all the time. Actually, let me pull, I don't know why I've never pulled it up. So let's do psychology experiment. There's a whole bunch of them, and I'm just gonna scroll through and see which ones. Let's check this out. Actually, let's just stick with the Milgram experiment. So, if you're not familiar, the Milgram experiment was in 1963. I'm not sure how much. It's only a 2-minute video, so I don't know how much they're gonna tell about it. But basically, you had two people. One was an actor and one was the actual person taking the test. So the actor goes in a different room. So there's only the person taking the test, and then there's a doctor in the room, and they say you have to ask questions, and if the other person gets it wrong, remember the person thinks that the other person is also just a participant. If they get something wrong, then you have to use this machine and shock them, and every question they get wrong, we're going to turn up the voltage, and this happens.
A decade earlier, psychologist Stanley Milgram had also looked at how we respond to authority. In order to understand how people were induced to obey unjust regimes and participate in atrocities such as the Holocaust, he set up an experiment. Volunteers were told they were taking part in scientific research to improve memory.
Would you open those and tell me which of you is which, please? Teacher. Learn. Teacher.
Separated by a
teacher and learners
screen, the teacher would ask the learner questions in a word game and administer an electric shock when the answer was incorrect. He was told to increase the voltage with each wrong answer.
Cloud, horse, rock, house.
So basically you just, that's the prompt. This is the actual participant. And he thinks that the other person who's actually an actor is also another participant. He's in a different room trying to answer these questions. And if he gets it wrong.
Answer. Wrong. 150 volts.
150.
Answer, horse.
So it starts out like that.
That's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please.
So that's the other person in the other room saying, "Please get me out of here. Get me out of here." And now you have the participant looking at the doctor in the lab coat saying, "We need you to continue. We need you to continue."
Right
on. I refuse to go on. Let me out.
You refuse to go on. The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
They would use that over and over. The experiment requires you that you continue. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor, and the so-called shocks harmless.
You're gonna get a shock, 180 volts.
I can't stand the pain. Hey, let me out of
Can't
here.
stand it. I'm not going to kill that man there. I mean, who's going to take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman? I'm responsible for anything that happens here.
Again,
Continue, please.
Again, that's the doctor saying, I'm responsible for anything. You don't have to worry about it. Just keep going.
All right, next one. Slow. Walk, dance, truck, music.
2/3 of volunteers were prepared to administer a potentially fatal electric shock when encouraged to do so by what they perceived as a legitimate authority figure. In this case, a man in a white coat.
375 volts. I think something's happened to that phone.
So what happened between ow, hey, I don't like this, get me out of here. It would get, the screams would get increasing. You saw he's up to 370 volts. Now, and so you before that you'd hear like, oh my god, ah! And then now he just hit this one and it's silent.
I don't get no answer. He was hollering a less voltage. Can't you check in and see if he's all right, please?
Milgram's findings horrified America. They showed that decent American citizens were as capable of committing acts against their conscience as the Germans had been under the Nazis.
And that goes right in line with the video I put out just this week about from one of what's his face, Jordan Peterson's talks about how we have to understand the beast that's inside us, the demons that are inside us, and learn to control them. But point being is that people want to go along to get along, and so even if a person, an individual, is intelligent, then when you bring the social aspects into it, it changes the game. Ghostbusters is another one I didn't get to see. This is what I need, guys. Join the Discord when we do movie nights. Bring up movies like Ghostbusters and get me in the know, man. Come on. Different experiment, but same method. Yep. Dan said it horrified the whole world because we didn't know. We didn't know that normal, average people were capable of behaving this way. And so you have different types of experiments where, like the one I talk about is you go into a doctor's office and it's all actors but one participant, and then they ring a bell and everybody's filling out their papers, and they ring a bell and then everybody stands up and then sits back down, and the actual participant's like, what the hell is going on? And then soon enough they hear the bell and they get up with everybody else. Then they start swapping out the actors, and you have a room full of participants who never got an explanation as to why anybody should stand up when the bell rings, yet they all stand up when the bell rings. The last one I want to mention actually is one that Tim Pool talks about all the time, is the monkeys. They put monkeys in a cage with a banana over a ladder. So if a monkey went up to grab the banana, they would spray all the monkeys with cold water. So very quickly, the monkeys didn't like that. And if anybody would even go up the ladder, any of the monkeys would even go up the ladder, they would beat the shit out of that monkey. And same thing, then they would start swapping out the monkeys. And now the monkeys who'd never been drenched in water are beating the shit out of the other monkeys who are climbing. And they don't know why. They don't know why. They're just doing it. Opus said this experiment is exactly why you teach people how to think rather than what to think.
Bingo!
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Reasonable opinions from them. You're giving your take, hopefully in an empathetic way.
Up a little bit.
He's the person in front of us. We want to feel like we're communicating and connecting with people. When you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can get some very reasonable opinions from them. You're giving your take, hopefully in an empathetic way. They're understanding you and hearing you because it's a one-on-one human interaction. There's a lot of reward there for coming to an agreement and understanding each other. But once they're gone and they go back to a social group, there is almost zero reward. In fact, there's a lot of punishment there for being empathetic to an outside party, but there's so much social reward for buying into the group. And it's that social reward you get for fully buying into the ideas of a group that you're in. I think that's what keeps people locked into tribalistic ways of thinking. And that's where you can pull somebody away from the group, have a really reasonable conversation with them. And then once they run back to the group, they're right back on what they were saying before.
I think he brings I think they play a clip of this, but he was talking about how in the abortion debate that the women who were there, because they work for organizations, there's no way that they were going to ever admit, oh yeah, I guess abortion is okay. Of course you're not going to be able to say that no matter what. Then he was, I just saw a clip. I don't know where it was from, but I think he was on Fresh and Fit. And He made the notion that like, okay, we all seem to be agreeing, or you all seem to be agreeing with me, but I'm going to go back and tell my audience the same thing I've been telling them. Are you guys going to change what you've been telling them? Or are you going to continue to say the same thing, even though you've just agreed with me?
Did you see the big red pill debate I had with Rollo Tomasi and Michael?
Yeah,
I said that, and I knew this would happen, and it did happen. I'm very firm on the things I believe. I said multiple times in that debate, hey, listen, because they kept saying, oh, we really agree. Oh, we really agree a lot. Oh, we really agree. And I said explicitly, I said, listen, you're saying that we really agree now, but when I go back to my people, I'm going to say the exact same stuff. You guys are going to start changing up a lot.
This is a debate tactic of yours that I've noticed, which is the Babe Ruth.
You guys aren't disagreeing with each other. You're just saying volume is the biggest driving factor, which means you have to go out there.
We all agree.
You're correct.
Sure, we can agree, but I don't believe in the dual mate thing at all.
Okay,
I don't believe in alpha fucks, beta bucks at all.
Okay.
I don't believe that status and class are your major determining factors for fucking. So if you want to say you agree with me, that's fine. But when I go back to my stream, I'm going to have this exact same message. I don't know if you guys, when you're on your other panelists, you're going to be like, oh yeah, like it doesn't really matter if you're that tall, you make that much money. The real drive is that you're actually going out there trying to fuck women.
So this is that is the meta aspect of, hey, we're not just having this conversation. Am I actually changing your mind? We're talking about how the conversation is affecting other conversations. Dan Jensen says, but are we really teaching kids how to think, or are we telling them what to think in the education system? Certainly it is the latter, and that is absolutely why it needs to change. That's why, there's such a huge push for homeschooling. You need to get your kids out of this indoctrination system and find whatever way you can, whether it's doing it yourself, finding a group that has a pod that hires a tutor. Get your kids out of the public school system. Straight indoctrination. Opa said, today, I believe most public schools are a little better than indoctrination camps. That's not the case when I was in school, though. Yeah, I mean, shit just gets worse and worse and worse.
Calling your shot. Tell them what's going on.
I will. I'm going to say exactly. Because I want to make the audience aware of like the meta stuff. I'm not trying to, when I track meta conversations, I'm not trying to trick people. Because I want people to be abundantly clear.
How predictable people are and how enslaved they are to ideology or social conformity.
Yeah.
When you say, look, I'm going to do this, you're going to give me this, but you will back out and you will start insulting me as soon as we get to here. It's like the level of predictability in you, it shows that you're not operating as an individual. You're operating as a predictable cog of an ideology or something.
And so that brings up, the initial poll that I had about a syllogism. A syllogism is basically a formula or an equation that you would use in logic. So let's just take this little thing here. Shout out to Philosophy Tunes. Gonna like the video. Definitely go check them out.
Out there that like losing arguments because that means that they've learned something. But usually, we want to look cool and smart in front of people that don't really care. I mean, come on. I'd miss my own wedding if it meant winning an internet argument with some random guy in Nebraska. But in all seriousness, being able to analyze different arguments through logic will help us make important decisions in life. There's different life philosophies and self-help advice out there, some conflicting with others. And perhaps by looking at all this advice more logically, we could come to our own conclusions. So this video is designed to provide a very basic, elementary introduction to logic for
very basic. I mean, I obviously haven't seen it, but it's only a few minutes long, so it's not going to be the end all be all. But it will certainly, if you don't know what a syllogism is, this is a great place to start and just start looking stuff up, because this is not just about winning debates. It's about understanding yourself, understanding other people, understanding the world you live in, and just communicating better. And what's more important? Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Dan Jensen! Come. Yet another treat for Morty. Oh, let me go full screen here. Let me go full screen and pull this down. There you go. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey. And I second that. Said, please hit the like button if you haven't. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dan.
someone who knows literally nothing about it. The text I'll be using, which I was taught in my logic class, is Harry J. Gensler's Introduction to Logic. Hopefully, if this video does its job and gets you more interested in logic, you can get the book yourself for further reading. Also, this video contains a lot of information, so feel free to pause it, take notes, go back to earlier sections, or whatever else you gotta do. Now, without further ado, let's actually start talking about logic.
Let's do it.
So first off, we should probably define logic. In contemporary culture, we kind of just use the word logic interchangeably with reason. If anything, the word is used as a political tool. You know, people will talk about how logical
Facts
they
over
are and
feelings.
their side is, while the other side is illogical.
Shout out again to Dan Jensen, who out-sponsored himself on the stream. That's right, the highest donation makes you the sponsor of the stream. Already was, and just showing the love. Thank you, Dan.
They'll say their position is logical without even talking about its validity or anything. But what really is logic? Gensler defines logic as the analysis and appraisal of arguments. I think about logic less as a thing, but as a method, a tool that you can use to look at arguments and determine certain things about that argument. We'll talk about those things later.
That's similar to how we talk about science not being a thing that you trust or don't trust, but a process by which you learn to trust or not trust certain positions.
But we might as well also understand what an argument is, since that's what we're going to be dealing with when we do logic. An argument has two components. First, it has a set of premises, which can be seen as supporting evidence.
Thank you, I want this.
And then a conclusion, which is based on that evidence. Now, you could have a lot of premises. I've seen them go up to more than a dozen personally. But for this video and for syllogistic logic,
I am the science, okay? When you're telling me that you don't trust what I am saying, then you are telling me that you don't believe science at all is anything, because I am the science.
I can't stand that, man. Yeah, I was thinking, damn Jansen, right? But I fixed it for you. Thank you one more time.
we're going to be dealing with two premises and one conclusion. Here's a more concrete example of an argument. All fish are animals. A salmon is a fish. Therefore, a salmon is an animal.
So again, yeah, we have the, I'm going to pull these off. So we have a very basic argument here. We have the two premises and the conclusion. So this is a syllogism. You have a sentence that says a thing, then you have another sentence that says a thing, and however many, and then a sentence that makes a claim based on all the premises that preceded it.
Also, those three dots that form a triangle, that's just another way to say therefore. I just use it instead of writing out therefore because I'm lazy. So now we know what an
Except he had to write therefore and explain that it meant therefore.
An argument is. And it might be helpful to think of some argument examples of your own. But we've only just begun. We've actually got to test these things. I mean, consider this example of an argument. McDonald's is healthy. All frogs creep me out. Therefore, biking should be illegal.
What? So this is a syllogism, but then we get into validity and soundness. Is it sound logic and is it a valid argument? So the first question is, are the premises true? McDonald's is healthy. Well, that's not true. And all frogs creep me out. Well, let's just say it is true for the person. Then does it follow that McDonald's being healthy and frogs creeping you out have anything to do with biking being illegal? Obviously not. So this is not sound logic. This doesn't make sense. This is not logical.
I mean, it's technically in the form of an argument, but something seems
right. It is a syllogism, but it's not a good argument.
Seriously wrong here. And I'm not talking about the fact that I actually like frogs. So when we get an argument like this or any other, we have to put it through two different tests. We have to test whether an argument is valid and if an argument is sound.
I know what I'm talking about, y'all. I know what I'm talking about.
So let's start with understanding what a valid argument is. The book states, an argument is valid if it would be contradictory, impossible, to have the premises all true and the conclusion false. Valid doesn't say that the premises are true, but only that the conclusion follows from them. If the premises were all true, then the conclusion would have to be true.
So basically, in order for me to make this conclusion, all the sentences, all the premises have to be true.
So to test for validity, we first don't concern ourselves about whether the premises are true. We kind of just assume them to be true for now. So even if we get ridiculous sounding premises like all giraffes live on Mars, we don't worry about whether it's true. What we do worry about is the relationship to these assumed true premises and the assumed true conclusion.
This is where we're getting into why this matters. Because again, we don't have to worry about what's true. We can just pull it into a syllogism and then understand it in that context. Dan says the problem is that when people see or hear things, they don't think of the validity of what they are told. Facts.
See if the conclusion necessarily follows from the premises. This might sound weird, so let's get an example going. All cats are evil. Garfield is a cat. Therefore, Garfield is evil. So
okay, so again, great graphic there. Assuming this is true, put a 1 in the chat if you think this is sound logic. Put a 2 in the chat if you think this is not sound logic. Anybody? All right, thanks for your participation.
again, it may or may not be true that all cats are evil, or if Garfield is a cat, but that's all irrelevant. We're only concerned here with whether the conclusion necessarily follows from the premises. Now, I'll explain an actual test to test for validity later in this video, but here's just an illustration I made to show how this argument is valid.
So, and indeed, it is valid, because if we go back to the actual thing, that if all cats are evil, and if Garfield is a cat, then by definition, Garfield has to be evil. This is if. These are all if. So the if part is the soundness. Is this logic sound?
Follows from the premises. Now, I'll explain an actual test to test for validity later in this video, but here's just an illustration I made to show how this argument is valid. All cats are evil, so the entire category of cats fits into the larger category of evil. Garfield is a cat, so he fits into the cat category, and since the cat category is in the evil category, it necessarily follows that Garfield is evil.
So if you don't have some, maybe not this specifically, but some type of structure in your mind when you're having an argument. Again, it doesn't have to be specifically this, but this is a good way to think about things. You know, the circle of what entails that which is evil. Okay, what and that which entails what is a cat, so on and so forth. But the syllogism is meant to be able to help you, especially as there's more and more premises and they get more and more complex, understand. Okay, well, if these premises are true, then is this true? And does that follow? And well, here's that why that's wrong, and all of that stuff. You're imagining all of this stuff. Garfield is evil to lasagna. Very, very true. Unless, you know, you think that food wants to be eaten, in which case he's very nice. But yeah, this is what you want, to have some type of visual aid in your mind for the words.
Therefore, this is a valid argument. But what about an invalid argument? What might that look like?
Oh yeah, I was mixing them up. So valid is not worrying about whether it's true or not. Just does it follow? And soundness is when it has to be true. So I mix those up. So a sound argument is better than one that is valid, that is not sound.
Let's take a classic argument example and modify it a bit to make it invalid. All men are mortal. Socrates is immortal. Therefore, Socrates is a man. Now, this might sound valid on its surface, but it's really not. Here's an illustration to show why. So all men are mortal. So the men category fits into the larger mortal category. Now, Socrates is immortal. And while that may mean Socrates can fit into the man category, he could also be somewhere else, like in this fish category, because fish are also mortal. So you see that even if it's possible for the conclusion to follow from the premises, it isn't necessary or forced. The conclusion must follow necessarily from the premises for an argument to be valid.
So if the things, if all the things were true, that would be a sound argument. The logic is valid. The logic is valid, but the truth of the claims are not there.
So that's what a valid argument is. Again, I'm actually going to give you a way to test for validity later on in this video. But first, and we
don't have to go through this whole thing. I just want to give you the basics.
I want to distinguish a valid argument from a sound argument. Now, a sound argument doesn't need much explanation. Basically, a sound argument is a valid argument, but the premises are also true. Remember how we don't really care if the premises are true when we test for validity? Well, here we actually do care. An argument could be unsound in either two ways. One, it might have a false premise, or two, its conclusion might not follow from the premises. Here's the classic example of a sound argument. All men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. As you could see, it is both valid as an argument and the premises are true. Don't worry yourself too much though about sound arguments or determining whether the premises are true, because in my experience, the majority of logic focuses around testing for valid arguments. A critical reasoning class might be better suited for judging if a premise is false or not. Anyway, now that we have distinguished between a valid and sound argument, let's now introduce a certain type of logic, which is arguably the most famous and accessible.
Let's see. Okay, so let's just go over this piece, and then we'll head back into the conversation.
Shout out to Aristotle. It's surprising that we haven't talked about him yet on this channel, but he is the inventor of syllogistic logic. Now there are three parts to an argument in syllogistic logic, or syllogisms for short. There's the major premise, such as all men are mortal. There's the minor premise, such as Socrates is a man. Then there's the conclusion, such as Socrates is mortal. Pretty straightforward. The thing is though, when working with logic, you're probably not going to be dealing with full words, but rather letters that represent a word.
And so this is when we get into the mathematics equation type of thing that I was talking about.
Usually you just substitute the word for the first letter. So instead of all men are mortal, you'd put all M is O, with O representing mortal, because we already have an M.
So, come on. So in this, So in this thing right here, now this looks a lot more like a math equation, that all M equals O. So now you can take that, and whether you're talking about men or mortality, it doesn't matter now, because you can map that onto anything.
All M is O, with O representing mortal, because we already have an M. But wait, why are we saying all M is O instead of all M are O? Well, that's because there's specific language used for syllogisms. Specifically, there are 5 words used in these sentences. Those words are all, no, some, is, and not. And when you combine the letters that represent a thing with these words, you get stuff like all F is H, or no G is D. These are called well-formed formulas, but in class we just called them woofs for short.
You need to understand these woofs.
Short. Here are some examples of woofs used in syllogisms, and underneath them are some non-woofs. Notice how the non-woofs underneath use language that isn't limited to our 5 words.
So let's just finish this off, this part off with using these woofs as no P is C. So we could, obviously we don't have the full syllogism here, but let's say we were talking about cats. No cat is I don't know, 6 feet tall. We could plug anything into that, and as long as the logic follows, then the logic follows. So it's a way to understand and categorize things in your mind, so that when you're having these conversations and you're doing all this deliberate stuff on the fly, that you have a sort of shorthand in your mind, that you don't have to think about the entire concept all at once. So let's back this up a little bit, see where he was.
Like, do this, you're going to give me this, but you will back out and you will start insulting me as soon as we get to here. It's like the level of predictability in you, it shows that you're not operating as an individual. You're operating as a predictable cog of an ideology or something.
Oh yeah, so this was where we were saying people are cattle.
But continue. So this was happening with Rollo.
Yeah. I'm just saying that, like, I just to summarize, I understand the social rewards of why people in groups act certain ways, because like you said, why the f would I branch out and like think for myself or have some ideas that don't belong to the group when there's so much reward, so much punishment for it, almost no reward. Like your reward is like personally satisfying enrichment of like whatever, like who really cares like that much, right?
Truth, who needs it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, truthfully, right? Yeah. But where, like the social reward is like so much more, it's so much more valid to people.
Yeah. Look, if you have to choose between truth and social cohesion will keep you alive.
Of course.
And truth very well may not.
And that's a sad truth of our society, and you know how we are, not just our society today, but how we are as humans, is that social cohesion will keep you alive and truth may not. Now, as we get further and further away from living in tribes and needing the physical protection of the tribe and all that stuff, it becomes less and less true. But our minds still operate in the same way.
So there's an inbuilt predisposition towards one over the other. I think.
It's like, I don't know if have you ever been involved in like internet drama stuff before?
Before he goes up on that, I just want to ask you guys if you had any specific questions about the syllogism thing that I could clear up real quick.
I've avoided it pretty well.
Okay, this is the worst thing to ever hear. Everybody that's ever told me this.
Right
people
to
do
the
this,
camera,
yeah,
you
people do this all the time. And you guys all know this too. Every streamer, every YouTuber knows this. The worst fucking message you ever get from somebody is when you're going through some crazy shit and you know it's stupid, that other people are being dumb, and people message you like, "Hey, dude, I just want you to know, like, I really support you." And it's like, why the fuck are you telling me this privately? If you really support me, why don't you go on Twitter and put your neck out for me, motherfucker? Don't sit here and say, like, "Oh, I support you. I wish I could say," like, your shit doesn't mean anything then, you know? Yeah, people do that all the time. Because, like, individually, they might know, like, listen, like, I got your back. Like, I know this is up. But publicly, they're not going to say shit.
How often do we hear about somebody who got canceled? And like, especially if they're in Hollywood, someone gets canceled. And we'll talk about, behind the scenes, this person, that person, people you would never expect. People who are, hanging me out to dry on Twitter are privately DMing me and saying, "Oh, I just gotta, do this. I really don't think what you did was that bad," and so on and so forth. Social cohesion. The power of suggestion is very, very strong.
Because the social punishment there is so huge for it.
Couple of thoughts to come up that you were asking. I've asked myself the question, why is a person smart but people are dumb, unruly animals? One of the thoughts, which I don't know if this gels, is that there's that quote, like, the best lack all conviction while the worst have it in spades. And the idea that there's this like, I think it's a healthy tendency towards openness allows you to assimilate more and arrive at truth over the course of a long lifetime.
I agree with that. Opus says, just because something is provable doesn't necessarily mean it is a good position. That is why in a debate, you need to be able to see ahead to where someone is trying to get you.
Bingo!
That's absolutely true. And that is why you not only need to have an understanding, because they're going to be operating on this syllogistic thinking as well. So if you understand that, then you can pull anything, any idea, certainly any argument into a syllogism. So if you can see where they're going, then you can poke holes in the equation before they even get it out, because you know how to fill in the gaps. That all F is P, or whatever it is. If you understand, he's saying all he's saying all white people are bad because racism happened. So okay, now we have the premises. Racism happened in America. It was predominantly, if not solely, black people. Therefore, white people are bad. That's the syllogism. So if you understand that that's where they're going, because they're certainly not just going to lay it out like that. They're going to do some grandstanding. Back hundreds of years ago, it was only this, and they're going to go through, but you'll be able to see. And so as soon as they're done, you can launch your response. Well said, Opus. Well said.
But what leads, we have 5 traits that are typically very charismatic, and high conviction is one of them. That's your Conor McGregor. That's your Donald Trump. That's your Andrew Tate, who is so certain about how everything in the world is going to work. And it's not that he's right about the world. It's that he has high conviction. And when people who have high degrees of openness or are more uncertain, whoever in the group has the most conviction winds up leading oftentimes. And it is not because they are closer to the truth or the most moral way of being, but because they believe it more fully.
This is something that I wrestled with a lot, because regardless of like how egotistical, I guess some people think I come off, I am really humble in terms of like, I know the extent of my knowledge really well. One issue that I ran into because of that is like, if I'm in a debate, somebody brings up something I genuinely am stumped by or don't know, I'll admit it. I'm like, I'm not sure about this. I don't know. Yeah, you might be right on this. But if I'm against somebody else, most people I argue with have such high conviction on everything, even if they have no idea what they're talking about. And it automatically makes me look weak to be more intellectually humble there. So I had to find strategies around that sort of thing, because it was making me look bad in debates against people that were just wrong.
And that's really frustrating, that you can be, and this is where I always bring up, my dad says, you can't be wrong and strong, but people have turned that into a career. And there's people who are, again, maybe they're just dumb. Maybe they're just too lazy to learn enough about what's being talked about. But if you come really strong in your convictions, then it's a lot. It's another that meta aspect. It's another hurdle to overcome because you have to not only deal with the issue, but you also have to deal with the tactics that are coming at you.
For a little while, I tried this in 2 conversations. For a little while, I would just flat out lie. I would have somebody debate me and they would say something, they'd bring up like an econ study. They'd be like, don't you know that like for minimum wage, don't you know that it's true that when you raise minimum wage, there was a study done, I think in like the 2000s or whatever in Massachusetts, where they showed that when they raised the minimum wage, it actually hurt a ton of businesses. I would just flat out say like, I've actually seen that study. You're completely wrong. It says the exact opposite. Every single time I did that, the person was like, oh, okay, maybe. And then they backed.
Based. I am definitely stealing that.
Off it immediately. And I'm like, is that easy? Do they have no idea
the depth of your understanding?
Yeah, they just, I just had no idea about it. But I stopped.
That's what you're gonna get when you are just repeating rhetorical talking points. When you're just using buzzwords, you're not gonna know the actual substance behind what you're talking about. And so you're operating on this idea that what you believe is axiomatic, that it exists and it's not arguable. So then when somebody pushes back, even if you are right, or even if your position is valid, where there might not be a right answer and a wrong answer, even if you have a valid position, then you start to question yourself because you don't actually know what you're talking about.
That pretty soon, obviously, because I don't want to like be known as
that's
like
not how you want to win.
Yeah,
but you could probably make a career of that. The level that you would get to before you even got
called out.
And by the way, by that time, you'd have 43% of the population just totally at your back.
Yeah, basically.
That's the new plan, guys. That's the new plan.
What I started doing is now when somebody says that, now I'll qualify heavily like my opinion. So it's like, oh, what do you know this? Usually I'll say, I don't think you're right. I'm pretty sure you're lying about this study. I'm pretty sure I'm going to look this up afterwards, and it's going to be the exact opposite of what you're telling me, which usually encourages the audience to start looking immediately. And I'll see people like pop up with answers sometimes. They're like, oh yeah, what's completely opposite?
So that's another meta tactic to on top of just engaging with what is being said in the conversation. Now you're playing to the audience. You're saying things that not only addresses your your role in the conversation, the back and forth, but you're also planting seeds in the minds of the people who are watching that maybe is not as confident as he thought. Opus said most average people rely solely on anecdotal evidence for their positions. No one reads, and really no one studies data. I mean, people do, but they're just very few and far between. And you don't need to put the quotes, because anecdotal evidence is evidence. It's just the weakest form of evidence. So if I tell you that Morty is laying in the bed right next to me, there's good reason to believe that. It's anecdotal, but it's evidence. Now, Morty could be laying down right over here. But why would I lie? All those things. So it's evidence. It's just the weakest form of evidence. Dan says, I'm off. Well, watch the rest of the stream later. Be safe out there in the real world. Dan, thank you so much. Can everybody write Dan the man in the chat? Never comes through without blessing me. Thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate it. I know you work hard for your money, and parting with it for little old me means a lot. Thank you. Have a good night, Dan.
And then I'll say, like, if that's true, given what you're saying is true, then I probably would think a little bit differently about this. But this is something that I need to research on my own, because every time I'm provided data on a subject like this, it's always the exact opposite of what you're telling me. So that's usually how I'll qualify that if it's truly something outside of my area of expertise.
Yeah. Going back just a bit, I was thinking about audience capture and how you've handled it. I was
Hit that poll for me, guys, please. I just want to please you.
Reminded of Jordan Peterson. Grow up. No, I actually like a lot of what he says. Short term is obviously not beneficial to fall out of line with whatever group you are, and you have to, he's got, I think, some issues with audience capture as well.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I saw the conversation. I saw the conversation going there, because I feel like, as much as I love Jordan Peterson, I think some of his work is I mean, it's up there. You're not gonna get a cleaner message than clean your room. You're not going to get a clear message in that. But I think ever since he's kind of fallen out of favor with the normies and has kind of gone into the first in the Rogan sphere and then to the Daily Wire, I do feel like he relies a lot more heavily on the political buzzwords than he used to. It used to be more, it used to be very political, but it was kind of coming from that psychological, spiritual, psychosocial background. Whereas now it seems to be a little bit more directly political. But I don't know. What do you guys think about Jordan Peterson pre and post Daily Wire? Let me know in the comments below.
Oh, I acknowledge. But he also is a strong advocate for, I think when he did stand up and disagree with his professors, that was what carved out a new career for him. And when I think of the difference between you and a Fox News anchor, you get to be you professionally forever because you have resisted I will not be a Democrat or Republican or this or that or a mouthpiece for this. And so I get to be me. And you're here. If you're still here, you're here for me. Versus if it's a Fox News anchor and you have a different opinion, you're just gone and nobody cares because they never were there for you. Exactly. They were there for a mouthpiece of the ideology. And so I think that pattern of, yes, there's tremendous short-term benefit for blending in with the group, saying what it is, and there's a short-term cost over a long enough timeline in a safe enough world, which
that's a really good way of thinking about how and why the legacy media has been dwindling. It's not like we didn't know, but putting it in those terms that like when you go, especially since Tucker's off of Fox, like people would go to watch Tucker for Tucker, but that was it. There wasn't nobody fucking trying to see, oh, I need to hear Anderson Cooper's opinion on this. I need to hear John Lemon's opinion on this. I need to hear Rachel Maddow's opinion on this. Wasn't happening. And I think, that is a super strong reason that, with that being the case, and previously before like podcasting and YouTube and stuff like that blew up, that there was no alternative. Now that it makes it actually more surprising that legacy media hasn't, gone through the floor all the way to China by now. Opus said, JBP still has something I find worth watching occasionally, but definitely much fewer since joining Daily Wire. I agree. Still happy to made that move. Yep. I agree with you there too. I'm very happy for him, but selfishly, I think his message is a little bit, I don't even know if watered down is the right way to say it, but it's just a little bit different.
I think we generally live in. You are far better suited to be an individual and say,
wait, I'm sorry, I missed this.
It is, and there's of, yes, there's tremendous short-term benefit for blending in with the group, saying what it is, and there's a short-term cost over a long enough timeline in a safe enough world, which I think we generally live in. You are far better suited to be an individual and say what you think. Do you disagree?
I don't know for everybody, I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh, here comes the socialist. A
lot. One of the big things I've been struggling with recently is trying to figure out, like, one thing that Red Pill does really well is it gives people like a whole way to view the world. One of the big benefits about religion is it gives you a metaphysical, a way of like understanding like what things are.
Before he goes down this road, I want to reiterate my message that despite the fact that I am atheistic, despite the fact that I do not believe religion is a good thing, the values that come out of the church are better than anything else that we have. And so what I want to happen is organically, not taking religion away from anybody, but saying that specifically outside of religion, we have this American identity that comes with a moral structure, that we care about community, we care about each other, we care about family, we care about our nation. Just basic things. Instead, what you get is people who can't do religion, people who don't believe, people who have tried to believe. There's nothing else to replace it with. So keep that in mind as he says this.
Things I've been struggling with recently is trying to figure out, like, one thing that Red Pill does really.
Let me, real quick. Opus said, legacy media is being held up by pharma and ruling elites. If CNN and Fox were expected to be more profitable, they would have closed up shop. Yeah, That's definitely true, but I think what they're really banking on is the influence, the fact that they can drive the narrative, the fact that they can drive the stories and what people are talking about and how they are talking about them. But yeah, I mean, they're not money making endeavors.
Really well is it gives people like a whole way to view the world. One of the big benefits about religion is it gives you a metaphysical, a way of like understanding like what things are. It gives you an epistemic, a way to like evaluate what is true and false, how to understand knowledge, and an ethical view of the world. You get all three of these things completely solved for you. The world is what the Bible says it is. Truth is what God tells you. Ethics are the 10 Commandments. You get everything solved for you, and you don't have to worry about any of that dumb shit. And then you can just go and live your life.
That is such an anxiety reducer. I don't even think people acknowledge the tremendous. I mean, some people who might have left religion have had these crises. The amount of anxiety that enters into your system when
y'all have no idea. Those of you who weren't brought up in the church and then left it, you have no idea.
Go, holy cow, these big questions are unanswered is insane. So solving them in one fell swoop is pretty psychologically tempting.
Yeah, it is tempting. And that is why so much of the leftist ideology has been embraced by the atheist community. But that doesn't have to be. If we have something else to offer them, then there's options. There's still always going to be shitty leftists. But it doesn't have to be all of the people who don't like God. And certainly, if it's the people who were, you're not going to get them back into religion anyway. Better that they at least share your societal values than being diametrically opposed to everything that you stand for. I mean, please tell me if I'm wrong. Shout out to Xander Crew. Welcome to the party. It says it's because being a deep thinking individual is difficult. And most people aren't set up for it. We need an identity for the masses. And if it ain't religion, it should be patriotism. Why not? We need to build out what that patriotism is so that it is an actual, maybe not necessarily an ideology in and of itself, but that it is an identity. Right now, being an American doesn't mean anything anymore. And I was thinking about, so Xander says, the lefties do praise a God. They praise the global corporate structure. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was watching something to do with immigration. And it's even more important that we push this idea of exactly, Opus, family, community, country, in that order. It's so very important that we push this in this country. Because we don't have a core American culture in the same way that other countries do. We are a country of immigrants. We are the melting pot. That is the whole point. So we have to create that American identity outside of other people's ethnic backgrounds. Because you're not going, if you move here from wherever, South Korea, you're not no longer South Korean. In the same way that if you're brought up Christian, you don't have to not be Christian. Just on top of that Christianity, or beneath it, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Next to it, or whatever the configuration, feng shui yourself out of all you like. But if we have that identity, that is family, community, and country, then we can save some of those people who are just aimlessly meandering through life, thinking that they have it figured out. Because their ideology is complete. It's the leftist establishment ideology that they're just adopting. And as long as we don't present any alternative, I'm telling you guys, the idea of getting people back into religion is a losing battle. You might get some people along the way, but on a long enough timeline, that's going to fail.
Yeah, so I think that's why those movements are so successful. So like I think Red Pill movement does a lot of similar things. It's very difficult for me to combat those movements because I'm very discreet with all of my thoughts. Like they don't all come from one ideological movement. So
you're discreet with your thoughts? What? I don't know if I would put that way. But and again, I forgot that he was even talking about Red Pill. That Red Pill is not. I mean, it's definitely better than leftism. But if that's not a great ideology for people to be making their identity either.
In some ways, it'll seem like I'm all over the map on things. But in other ways, like, I mean, like if you understand my philosophical foundations, like it's pretty easy to guess what my opinions about a given topic will be. But it's hard because sometimes people will ask me like, oh, like what should I think about a given thing? And usually I'll say, well, like give me your core values and I'll give you probably the direction that you should head. But they don't always have those worked out. So they're really just asking me like, the last thing I want is I don't really want my audience to copy my policy positions. I kind of want them to copy my thought process. And if we end up disagreeing.
Based. That's what I want for you guys too. I don't want you to just adopt what I think because I could be wrong about a lot. But if you adopt the way that I think, and maybe not adopt it, but learn from, you know, what the value that you have in the way that you think, and just add what I have, and I can add what you have. Then goes around in circles, and we're all getting better and smarter every goddamn day.
At the end of the day, on some policy positions, that's fine. But I don't want you just like repeating verbatim, like, because one, I might change my mind because other data will come out, and two, I kind of defeats the entire purpose of my whatever political project, whatever you call my channel, if you're just like treating me as like another Fox News anchor. Like, oh, what is my ideology? Whatever Destiny says, right? That's not like a,
Well, recently, I think it's interesting that you say that because you've got the political, and I think that was a huge piece of what you did. There's so much more social aspect of what you're doing. You're talking a lot with the Red Pill. And I've heard you say that they don't address relationships. There's a lot of things that are taken, they don't matter to the Red Pill movement because it's up until you have sex with her and then maintain frame. I'm curious, this is perhaps broad, but we can narrow in on it. What you would recommend broadly as an approach to interactions with women from men, like what is not the antidote to the Red Pill, but what is a competing view of the world that people can live through?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time.
It's like, leave this and go where? Wow.
The issue is that like they have like such a compelling narrative to describe the whole world. I would argue that it's a bad narrative because like all bad narratives, it makes really bad predictions. A good narrative is one that will give you accurate predictions of how people will behave or how the world will respond to what you're doing. And I don't think anything in the Red Pill predicts anything good. You follow the Red Pill to a T. It's not like, you remember like the PUA scenes and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I didn't like them, at the very least, I could say like, if you follow a lot of PUA shit, you'll probably get laid. I don't think that's true with the Red Pill. I don't think it's going to give you any success with women, any success with relationships.
That's not true. It's definitely going to, depending on who you are and where you're coming from, there's a lot of valuable information in Red Pill ideology. Is it going to get you, a 23-year-old virgin who's, all this, that, the other, is going to get all that stuff to have a perfect family? Probably not. But to say it's not going to lead to any success with women, that's a little too far.
What is the difference between PUA and Red Pill? I don't know enough of I thought that they were
time. I think that's it. It's just, that's what it became. It kind of went underground for a while, and then it just reappeared as the same thing with a different name. Xander said, it will in the long run. Men working on themselves is the best advice to have sex unlimitedly for a man. True, but I don't think that they focus on, that's what at the edges, they do focus on working on yourself. But the ways that they try to tell you to work on yourself are not the best ways that are conducive to being a man who is prepared and willing and ready to have a family. What Destiny is saying is that the PUA guys, actually, you will get to sleep with women. The PUA guys were never talking about building a family. But Red Pill talks about, oh, I want to have this, that, and my wife is this, but that ain't gonna happen, bro. That ain't gonna happen. Xander said, short-term rejections from modern feminists is nothing compared to dozens of women that will throw themselves at you when you're successful. Yeah, but what happens in 2 weeks? What happens in 6 months? What happens in 5 years? That's what they don't address. Give me something from the Red Pill. Give me something from Fresh and Fit that addresses how to deal with your 6-year girlfriend or your 6-year wife. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of good, this is good information. Work on yourself and, chase women, chase excellence. Don't chase women. Beautiful. But that's one sentence. Great sentence. But it's one sentence.
were like closely related to
I think
pickup.
it kind of, Red Pill kind of can review it, but PUA seemed to like acknowledge like these are the ways that you can kind of get women. These
And
are like
these are the things to say, things
yeah,
to
the like
wear,
little psychological
skits
tricks
to do. Yeah.
Red Pill has gotten to this whole weird, crazy world of like sexual market value and like high value men can juggle multiple women and women like to be cheated on because it makes them more competitive.
What?
And you need 50 women by the time you're 35 so that you can settle down with a virgin to get married and have a family. But also you should never get married because all women are looking to fuck your life over in divorce. So you shouldn't even live with your significant other to avoid common law marriage. It's just like, it's a wacky world of like, one, it makes bad predictions of human behavior because most people are not like this. And then two, it's not going to help you get any girls because like none of this shit, never in the life of has any woman been like, I wish my boyfriend was more into Red Pill stuff. That's just never been a conversation we have.
See, that's where I disagree with him because it's not about the fact. She's not going to be attracted to the fact that you are into it. She's going to be attracted to you because of things that you've learned and put into practice. But I for the long and short of it, that really, aside from maintaining frame, so improve yourself and maintain frame. Those are, if somebody had just really sat me down and told me, hey, specifically when it comes to girls and having a family and life, you got to focus on yourself and then maintain frame. If somebody had just told me those two sentences when I was a teenager, my life would be drastically different. Drastically different. But again, how long does it take to say those two sentences? They do hours, hours and hours and hours every show, every single night. What else is there? I get it. What else do you have for me?
I think that if I had to give them the truth in it is that, and I think this is unfortunate, is like there are women who respond well and with a more commitment to being cheated on. That doesn't mean these are
that's got to be like the
damaged people,
a crazy exception.
Yes, and I've spoken. They have the way that Red Pill describes relationships, in my opinion, is like two traumatized people just.
That's what it sounds like. When I listen to a lot of people, it sounds a lot like
they're
who
going to
hurt
take all
you.
your money and they're going to do all this. It's like that happens, and you can point out examples. Like there are also a lot of divorces that don't do that. There are people that walk away and don't make that decision. There are people that
people talk so much about like alimony destroying. Like, alimony is like 10% of all divorces. It's not like the most common thing in the world.
And if you're
I agree with that notion, but it doesn't matter to those 10% of people because they are dealing with it and it's a real life thing. Most people who go in who get in a car don't get in an accident, but you still learn about why you should keep a few car lengths and you wear your seatbelt. It's to prepare. It's to make sure that these things don't happen to you.
World matches that worldview. I see why it's very appealing, but it actually just says less about the world and more about the people that you draw into your own life through the way that you are being. If everyone that you interact with is into super high status, flashy men, and doesn't give a shit about the type of personality you have, and you make a conclusion that this is what women are, this is what the women in the pond that you are fishing in are like, and that are responding to you are like.
There's a really frustrating line, and it was like one of the biggest self-reports I've ever seen, but I don't think anybody realized it. Fresh and Fit did an episode with Valuetainment where they had like 40 girls on, and it was just them and like Fresh and Fit. And one of the lines that Myron uttered to one of the girls was like, listen, if you want to be seen in this world as a man, you've got to be a high achiever. Like all the men that you see here, we're only here because we achieve high. You're just here because you're a girl. And it's like, it's your show. You invited them.
Your show.
Like, do you think people make it to Oprah just because they're an attractive woman? Do you think people make it to like a late night show or a late show just because they're attractive? Like,
depending on what industry, absolutely. I don't understand his point. Yes, they didn't ask me. Did they ask any of you to be on that podcast? Why do you think we didn't get the call? Maybe. It's because we're not pretty girls.
That's your choice. You know?
But why is it their choice? It's their choice because they have value as being pretty women. It's not that complicated. There says most women get places because of their looks. Period. Absolutely. I mean, pretty privilege is not even questionable. not. I mean, that's not even a conversation.
And
But so yeah, if you keep surrounding yourself with those types of people, the philosophy becomes self-fulfilling. I remember the
Well, it
first.
is your world, because nobody's world is 7 billion people. Their
Yeah.
world is 70 people.
Sure,
and
yeah.
then they talk about the world. And
Like-
we've got everybody talking about the world, it's like the people.
Xander going for the zingers, and men must slave away and earn their way anywhere, unless they're Hunter Biden. Good one.
discussing what an elephant is,
Yeah.
all trying to make an agreement. It's like, no, you're just describing your small section of it that you have selected for.
Yeah, hard
by
score
who
selected
you
for.
are.
I remember the first time I left Fresh and Fit, I remember thinking like, holy shit, if all women were like the women on this show, I would be fucking super red pill. Yeah, 100%. I get it now. If these are the women that they bring on all the time, yeah.
Yes, and it is not.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to gloss over the fact that the women who go on Fresh and Fit and whatever are not, by and large, representative of your average woman out there. But that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. What Destiny didn't just understand is, oh, well, what do you mean? Well, you got invited. You invited her. Yes, because that's a certain type of woman. There's a certain type of person that has value to the show. And other people who don't look like that don't have that value. And she didn't do anything for that value except be.
Not a mistake that they are here. They are here in the way that they are because they were invited by you, attracted by you.
Why?
Let's talk about game, or how should, I don't know if have you approached dating in a way that is different, or, if you were to share.
Yeah, Ovid said most of these women also look really bad the second they open their mouth. And that's where, the pretty privilege ties into it. The fact that, they get away with so much just because they are women and they have their looks. They don't, this is something when I do the It's Complicated videos, that you see that it's not like they have the wrong ideas. They just didn't think about the thing beyond their first answer. It's something you've never thought about. Something, about like dating and relations and how people interact. Something that you might be thinking about all the time, that you might have a podcast about it. You might, whatever. These women have just been able to float through life without even ever having to worry about it in the first place. And it's not until they're on the show that they realize that. And that's why they look bad. It's not because they're all so stupid and oh my God, all these women are so. That's not. It's not that. It's that we're dragging, just like we were talking in the beginning of this. They get dragged intellectually into grounds that they are not used to talking about, and so it makes them look very stupid.
Because I don't know that there's a lot of other competing narratives out there.
Man, I don't know. It's like, again, I don't think I have like a wholly cohesive narrative. There's just like a lot of little things that I've kind of like learned over the years. I guess like one is I know who I am, and I know the kind of people I attract, and I know the kind of people that wouldn't be attracted to me. So like, I'm very much into like kind of like,
this is super important, by the way. And I don't think this is discussed, because the idea of red pill is this is who women are.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is there are lots of different people attracted to lots of different things. Some women are going to go to the gym. They're going to get really swole, and they're going to date the guy that is 300 pounds of raw muscle. And that is going to be every boyfriend they have. Somebody else is going to date every skinny rocker. Somebody else is going to date people that are deadbeats and they just need to caretake. Like,
right. I understand the idea that they are looking at red pill content as oversimplified. But what they're not, I feel like what they're missing is that, I mean, unless I'm wrong, I don't think that the average kid who watches Fresh Fit, and again, I could be very wrong about this, but I don't think that by watching Fresh and Fit, they think that they are going to become that high value man, but just that, oh, okay, this is the track that I'm supposed to go on. And I might not end up with the Lambos and the Bugattis and all that stuff. But if I go down this road, I'll end up closer to where I want to be. It's like the ideals versus the practicality thing that I'm talking about with politics. That we want an anarcho-capitalistic society where we all just, do the right thing and help each other out and all that stuff. That's an ideal. We're never going to be able to live in that world. But if that's the direction we're moving, the closer we can get to that world, the better. And they're going right over their heads. And along with that is what's the word? They would call it oppression. But they're not taking into account the struggle of these young men who don't know what to do and are getting value from Fresh and Fit. Even if it's, not a lot of value, it's something. And so to have those faculties, to have those understandings already, it's easy to brush off like, oh, that's so stupid. Obviously, maintain frame. But if you didn't know that, then it's not that simple. And they're just kind of not addressing that, not thinking that.
Yeah. If there's a girl on Tinder and she's like, I need a guy with 36-inch arms. It's like 6'4". Like, I'm not going to be barking up that tree. Like, I know. Yeah. So there's a certain type of girl that I like, and there's a certain type of girl that likes me. I tend to like maybe kind of like nerdier, kind of like alt girls, people that are like very aggressive, like career intellectual driven girls. Like this tends to be the crowd, game people, maybe politics people. These tend to be like the crowd that I do well with. And so that's kind of like the crowd that I navigate through the most. That's not exclusively what I'm, what I can score with. It just depends on
why
like,
is it the crowd that you do well in. I think it's because that is reflective of where you would be otherwise.
So Trey says you're not fully wrong, but I would say most of them have fell into the oversimplified approach. And again, I mean, we would have to do an actual survey of the people, but this is what I worry about. This is why I've personally distanced myself from playing their content and that kind of stuff, because I do. There's definitely some percentage of them who think, oh yeah, I just watched Fresh and Fit and now I'm going to be a high value man. I'm going to have 5 wives, like Sneeko. But I don't know how much of I just feel like it can't be. Can it? Can it? Maybe people are that impressionable, and they're falling into that message. I don't know. I think what will really bore that out is whatever the next iteration of Andrew Tate dating stuff, whatever that next thing is, that's really going to highlight the problems and the inadequacies of the red pill movement that's now dying. That's for sure. But yeah, you might be right. You might be right. So he likes masculine women. Yep. I mean, Melina's pretty hot though. She's definitely very feminine. I can tell a mile away he's into pegging. Oh God.
Yeah. I mean, like on a first date, typically my style of
pegging.
Fuck, seduction sounds so cringe. Conversation, I'll say, is I'm usually talking to somebody. Usually my goal is to ask a person a lot of questions to figure out like what's kind of like your life, what are the things you into, what are you passionate about? Like my goal is through conversation to figure out like what are some things that you feel really strongly about, maybe you don't get to talk about a lot that you'd like to, and how can I listen to you talk about these things and like engage with it like in a funny way that shows that I'm like charismatic, charming, humorous, but also that I'm like really listening to you and giving you an opportunity to kind of like talk about things that are important to you, right? And then also gives me an opportunity to showcase my personality at the same time, right? If I'm talking to a woman, she says she's got like a huge passion for teaching, and I'm like, oh, like what grade, like why? She's like, oh, middle schoolers, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm bringing up like, oh, I've got a 12-year-old son, I would kill myself if I had to deal with like 20 of them at a time, right? It's a
Destiny and Jack Murphy pegging each other. Oh God, oh no.
Funny joke. She knows how difficult it is dealing with the kids, right? Things to like, yeah. So like that style of conversation will be where I go. There's a lot of like personality traits I have that I think are really good for getting people to open up to me. I'm very non-judgmental. I try to be really emotionally communicative. Like I'm sensitive to certain
Non-judgmental
topics.
is very, very powerful.
What?
Especially on non-judgmental.
Oh yeah, non-judgmental is yeah. People.
Yeah, I mean, he does think like a woman, and as somebody, I would consider myself a sensitive dude, and it's definitely not been a good thing for me. But there's a difference between being, emotionally intelligent, if you want to put it that way, and having, the track of your mind. It's very different for men and women, and it seems like he just thinks like a girl. It's just. Yeah, this is exactly how girls describe themselves. I mean, it's an interesting interesting phenomenon because he, you know, I mean, he seems to do all right for himself, but it's when you say the things like that, and then you're coming off of, oh, you definitely shouldn't listen to Andrew Tate or Fresh and Fit or anything like that. Like I can say, don't listen to Fresh and Fit. You can't be pulling this bullshit and then say, oh, Fresh and Fit, like, come on. You know what I mean?
Generally feel like they can share a lot of things with me without me being judgmental about it.
I think this is, even zooming out, again, without dogging on the red pill, especially as regards having sex, if you're a person who has a tremendous amount of judgment for women who engage in sex, and you are also a person who is going out trying to have quick sex with women,
it's super dumb.
Those are cross purposes, and you will exude, bleed, or otherwise really have to hide that because some part of you is, you know, I do not respect the women who do the thing that I am hoping that they do.
It's real dumb, yeah.
That's the biggest. I mean, bottom line, that's the biggest issue with red pill. But I got to say, they do have a point in, you know, the things that he's listing. The way that he's talking about it is not, but the fact that you have to be able to talk to a woman, like if you're going to be in a relationship, if you're going to be married, if you're going to have a family, you do have to be emotionally equipped to do that. And I don't want to, in the same way that I don't want, like what they're doing is to, you know, kind of brush off the more superficial aspects that absolutely do matter, that absolutely get your foot in the door. Then we also don't want to do what the red pillars are doing wrong, which they pointed out, which is not talk about the aspects of what does it actually take to keep a woman. Like, that's where I think the disconnect is with the red pill stuff is you can get probably, and going back to, you know, Trey saying that a lot of them might fall into this oversimplified approach. If they're not understanding that that is what it is, an approach, not a lifestyle. This is an approach to do a thing, and then you have to live a lifestyle. And yeah, that's not really that differentiation doesn't really come up that often. It's always about, you know, being the man and protecting this. And like, yes, those are important things to keep, you know, in the back of your mind as you're living the rest of your life. But what is the rest of your life? And that could be anything, but it's certainly not coming from the red pill content creators.
I want to say like half the girls.
Oh, sorry, I missed some here. Opus said Destiny is the top 1% of guys that think like him. Most guys that think like him will die virgins.
Bingo.
Yup.
I hooked up with in California, I think, because for a while when I was in California.
I mean, actually, let's talk a little bit more about that, because you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The only reason he gets away with thinking that this is a masculine and manly way to address things is because he already has other aspects of high value male, being a high value man in his life. He already has money. He already has social credit by being, I don't know, famous is quite the word, but certainly popular. And so everything else in his life is going to matter significantly less than any of us. And so he's talking more about life from his perspective rather than trying to understand what is your perspective and what should you do from that perspective.
I was on Tinder.
Let's back this up. Sick.
Looked up
the women who do the thing that I am hoping that they do.
It's real dumb, yeah. I want to say like half the girls I hooked up with in California, I think, because for a while when I was in California and I was on Tinder, I that was a stage of my life where I didn't want to deal with anybody that knew me online. So I removed all of my fucking online personality shit from there because I just wanted to deal with like normies or whatever. But a lot of the girls that I hooked up with were they had like no hookups, no one night stands in their profile, and I think they're like talking and associating with people. I think it's because people feel really bad about being judged with it.
Yeah.
Like there were a couple where like
no, what? Guys, Galaxy Brain take here. I think Destiny has just uncovered a previously unknown fact about women, that they're ashamed of having a high body count. No shit. Any Film says, speaking from recent experience, if you want to stay in a relationship longer than 6 years, do not ignore red flags. Do not ignore red flags. Look for a woman who is happy, supportive, and kind. Well said, sir. Well said, sir. That was the biggest thing in my last relationship, is that I ignored the red flags. I saw that she was a single mother. I saw that she was recently out of a long-term relationship. I saw that she had issues with her parents and didn't have a good relationship there. But she had big boobies and green eyes and wanted to slob on my knob. That didn't work out very well for me. Could have been a lot worse. But it definitely did not work out.
And obviously they felt safe, they felt comfortable, they felt cool, and we would do stuff. And then afterwards they're like, oh, like, don't think I'm like a slut because I know this is like the second time we've seen each other or whatever. And I was like, no, it's cool. It doesn't matter. So people like people that are emotionally responsive, that are really listening. I don't fake anything for conversations. Like if I'm asking you questions because I have a genuine interest in it, and that's going to show through my engagement.
How did you develop, or was that just natural to you? Because that is very difficult for me, for a lot of people, to not smooth things over. Did that come easily to you, or
so that's a great question, and I'm very interested to see what he says here, because the fact is, being this deliberate is absolutely a skill, and you have to be able to critique yourself. Not only take critiques from other people, but critique yourself and understand what you're doing wrong and not portraying the message that you're trying to portray. Trey says, I disagree, because guys like him tend to be more self-aware about the things that they like and want in women, and they usually don't try to go for things outside of their comfort zone. I'm guessing this is in response to Opus saying Destiny is the top 1% of guys that think like him. Most guys like him will die of virgins. Trace, I disagree. Guys like him tend to be more self-aware. I don't know if I agree with that. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised at how there's this. I don't know. I found it on TikTok, but maybe you're familiar with it, Trey. It's from some. Do you live in the? Well, I don't want to dox you, but it's this radio thing in Texas called Second Date Update, where you call the radio station, you had a date with somebody, and then they'll call the other person when you've been ghosted and try to do whatever. And I'll be honest, some of these dudes, I'm like, bruh, how dumb, how unself-aware are you? Could not be less self-aware, where it's like, bro, you have this second date. I don't know. I never am going to put my eggs in the basket of, yeah, too many people are self-aware. I don't know. You might be right. You might be right, but I don't know about that. Xander says people forget that that extremes in polarities gain a lot of attention. Both this blue-haired dude and Fresh and Fit are opposite extremes in one spectrum. They're each the 1% of their worlds giving advice that will cripple the 99%. Well said. Well said. Listen to that show all the time. Why not, right?
What do you mean to not smooth things over, or?
To so many people, in order to fit in, they are not asking or being like, how do I show myself? They are asking, what do you want me to be? How can I figure that out and then be that for you? And I'm curious if that was just something that came easily to you, this sense of, I don't fake shit.
I mean, one is that, like, I have a pretty strong personality. I've got a pretty strong character. I think two is that, like, I think people like that. I think people like confidence, and I think people, especially women, like passion.
No, it's counterproductive to do with the thing that I described that a lot of people do. For
like there's something I noticed really early in life, in like my late teens, like early 20s, before I even got like into streaming or whatever, is it was really fun. Oh, also, and this is really lame, but the thing that helped me the most is I was always trying.
Shout out to Melton My Media.
With lots of girls through high school, because of the people that I hung out with. There was always groups of girls, so I was always really confident and comfortable talking to women. Even though I was short, had horrible acne, I didn't really have much going for me physically, but I was super funny, super charismatic, lots of experience talking to girls. Something I noticed really early on, and I probably employed this more as like a trick than more understanding what was happening. But like if I'm talking to a girl, And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, what kind of music you listen to? And she says something like, oh, like I really like Newfound Glory. If I say something like, oh my God, that's like my worst band of all fucking time. I can't believe you like, they have, every album is bad. Name like 2 good songs. If you challenge, especially like a pretty girl like that, their eyes light up and like, what do you mean? Like, she's never had somebody push back against her entire life.
Based. That's a way to do it.
Pickup artists sort of understood this, and this was the concept of a neg, which got blown out of proportion because it's not an insult. It is a disqualifier of I am just like every other guy trying to say whatever you want.
Exactly.
Yes.
But
ooh, let's listen to that one more time. That was really well said. That's why I really like Charisma on Command, this guy's channel that he does the regular videos, not the podcast. They're very, I mean, it's just, well, they're really well done. They're really well done. Let's
This was the concept of a neg, which got blown out of proportion because it's not an insult. It is a disqualifier of I am just like every other guy trying to say whatever you want.
Exactly. But it's, you got to be so careful because a lot of people.
It's not an insult.
Yes. That's so important because a lot of people watch me interact with them. They're like, oh, all Destiny does is a neg. And it's like, no. If you watch conversations I have with people, they're always laughing. They're always smiling and having fun. And I'm never, like, I would never go on a first date with a girl. Like, I might go on a first date with a girl and say, like, I love your dress. My grandma has a tablecloth that looks just like it. That's like a joke. But I would never be like, oh my God, that dress makes you look so fat. Yeah. I would never say that, right? Because one is,
and you know, this is Trey when I talk about, you know, and you know, if you listen, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. These dudes that have the date there. Now, I came across some girl, you know, records the things every morning and does it. Obviously, I don't live in Texas, but it's guys are just, we have to remember that men occupy on the bell curve of intelligence the ends. So while all the smartest people, most of the smartest people are going to be men, most of the dumbest people are also going to be men. Now, the average woman might not be, you know, a genius, but they all kind of, you know, fit right in the middle there. Dudes, if he's not smart, he's a dumbass.
Stupid.
It's like a funny kind of jokey thing, and we can go back and forth. And especially if you've been used to dealing with simpy guys all your life, having somebody that's willing to have a backbone and give a little bit of pushback for some conversation is so much fun. But it's never going to be like, I'm trying to hurt you and make you feel bad.
Yeah.
You know?
The big difference that I noticed in myself and other people that I teach or talk to is that the way that men engage in conversation and the way that flirting occurs are just different. Men are often very logical. What time do we do here? I express that I like you. You receive that I like you. You report back to me if you like me in return. And for women,
if only it was that simple, right?
It's much more of what is occurring underneath the conversation. And if you can't detect, like what you're describing there is somebody might see he's insulting women. That is what they like. And what is occurring in my analysis underneath that conversation is he is providing an injection of fun, emotional play into this conversation. And now we can spar playfully back and forth, which is a fun thing to do.
This is what, if you ever, watch a ungodly amount of reality dating TV shows, because it's my guilty pleasure and I'm not ashamed of it. But people from outside the country always talk about banter. Let's go be the banter. And that's what they mean, is that playful flirting. And I don't know why it's how it became something different, because essentially it's not something that wasn't done here. We just don't say it like that. And this is exactly what he's describing, you know, spar playfully back and forth, which is a fun thing to do, but we just don't call it banter. But that's what they call it.
But then that can be misinterpreted by people who don't understand the subtleties of it, of
banter,
insult.
Yeah, because people will see it and they'll be like, I'm like such a nice guy to like so many girls, and this guy's a fucking asshole, and he gets all the girls. And it's like, even the guys that are fuckboys and assholes, and I know a lot of them that do fuck a lot of girls, but like, oh, he's an asshole and he gets the girls. When you watch them interact with girls, it's similar to what I'm saying. It's generally not them being really rude or horrible. Usually they're, even if they're being,
hey, yo, baby, yo, that's so good, let me get at you,
like really aggressive or kind of like insulting, it's on stuff that's not that big. Like the word, they might say like, oh, your last boyfriend was a loser or something like that, but it's like in a playful kind of way. If it was like it'll be stuff that's not like, you're a fat whore. Come fuck me, you know? Yeah.
It's a shame that, as you're talking, that feminism is associated with screeching, crying, and not like, forget masculine or feminine. There are healthy virtues, and one of them is emotional attunement, the capacity to do that, the ability to feel your own emotions, to empathize with other people. That is a virtue, and that it is associated with
being weak.
Yeah.
And like being able to have those types of really challenging conversations, or to be a sounding board for somebody else to do that, requires that's a very difficult thing to do. The biological animal world definition is fairly true, but the way that it's ripped on by these communities is so false. If you look at like silverback gorillas, like think as strong as a gorilla is, it's not going to fight off 3 at once. An effective leader, like the gorilla, the leader of the alpha of the pack, is also breaking up fights.
Did you watch the chimp documentary at all?
I haven't. No.
You know, they have to groom each other.
And they groom.
There's a chimp documentary. Watch party.
They had to do a lot of social
the
grooming.
beta will ask to do the grooming, but it's a reciprocal arrangement at that point.
And if you think of effective leaders in companies, or whatever, they're not alpha guys that are fucking screaming at people all the time. They're usually pretty empathetic leaders. They understand the needs of other people around them, and they're doing their best to be like a leader that's responsive to the needs of their team.
Drama.
So you can see, I mean, definitely, like I said, there's almost twice as much more in the full podcast. So definitely go check that out. I linked both this video as well as the full podcast in the description below. We got a couple latecomers. Shout out to Kelly Green and St. Michael. Welcome. And Nick, welcome. What is good? So, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's really about the fact that we need to make sure that we are understanding how we can fulfill our role of being a good faith, intellectually honest interlocutor. You want people to open up to you. You want people to be comfortable giving their opinions. You want people to be willing to get in the weeds of an issue. But if they don't see that you're either capable of doing that yourself, or willing to give them the space and grace to do that, then the it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So hopefully, you know, this I was really excited when I saw that Destiny was going to be on this podcast, because like I said, that guy Charlie, he's really intelligent. He's very in tune with this stuff. His channel, Charisma on Command, it always surprises me how deep into a very specific thing about like what to do when somebody makes fun of you and you don't think it's funny, and turn that into just great stuff. And it's really what we need more of. We need to be able to interact with each other, both on good terms and in bad terms, in good ways. And we all just suck at that. So I want to thank you guys so much. Big shout out to Unwanted Foe, and of course, Dan Jensen, the sponsor of the stream. Thank you so much. Don't forget, we are going to be doing 6 p.m. Eastern, just like we did today, same time on Wednesday and on Friday. And then I think we are going to go back to 8 p.m., but I'm just trying out something new, see if we can get some more people. And I definitely appreciate every one of you guys. And I'm ready to head over to the after party. That's right, guys. The party is not over. We are continuing in Discord. It is free to join. A link in the description. You're not even going to be stuck behind your keyboard. We're going right into the voice chat for an after panel. So come on and join us. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you learned a little something. I hope you had fun in the meantime. Once again, I have been your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, I am out of here. Peace.